Mortal Kombat's timeline has ended, rebooted, and then split into multiple histories where different people won. So today, I'm tracing the complete game timeline from the creation of the realms through Chaos Reigns to answer one question: which history actually counts, and why does every attempt to fix it create an even bigger disaster? We start before Shao Kahn, before the first tournament, and before the realms themselves, with the being whose defeat created everything, the One Being. Before Earthrealm had champions, before Outworld had an emperor, and before anybody could shout the words Mortal Kombat, existence belonged to the One Being. The original Midway-era mythology describes a creature so complete that reality had no room for anything separate from it. The Elder Gods existed within that totality, and the One Being fed on their power. If they wanted freedom, they had to do something almost impossible: defeat the reality that contained them. The Elder Gods attacked using 6 objects of immense power called the Kamidogu. Their victory shattered the One Being, and its body broke apart into the realms. Earthrealm, Outworld, Edenia, the Nether Realm, Order Realm, and Chaos Realm were no longer pieces of one conscious whole. They became independent worlds with their own people, rulers, and laws. Except the One Being never vanished completely. Its consciousness remained buried inside the realms, dreaming through the pieces of its divided body. That is why merging realms carries a danger larger than ordinary conquest. Put enough of those pieces back together, and the ancient being could theoretically awaken. A warlord who absorbs another realm thinks he is expanding an empire. On a cosmic level, he may also be rebuilding the thing the Elder Gods nearly died to destroy. The Kamidogu become just as important. In the original continuity, each major realm possesses one, and together they can channel the power linking the divided worlds. Shujinko will spend decades gathering them before Onaga tries to combine them. Much later, Titan Havoc will weaponize another version during Chaos Reigns. Their details change as the franchise changes continuity, but their basic purpose remains clear. These objects touch the architecture between realities. Later games introduce Kronika, the Hourglass, and a race of Titans above the Elder Gods. Mortal Kombat never gives us a neat scene where every cosmology clicks together without contradiction, so the safest way to understand it is by layers. The One Being explains the original creation of the realms. Kronika explains who has been editing history inside later timelines. Liu Kang then discovers that even the Keeper of Time controls only one history among many. This creation story also explains why Mortal Kombat treats geography like a living weapon. Outworld can contain pieces of places that once existed independently. A portal is more than transportation when the worlds on either side are fragments of the same ancient body. Magic that crosses those boundaries is touching the seams created by the Elder Gods' attack. The Elder Gods are not flawless creators. They act because they are being consumed, then spend later ages responding only when threats satisfied narrow conditions. Their first solution succeeds on the largest possible scale and leaves everyone beneath them managing the consequences. That pattern repeats throughout the franchise. A cosmic authority prevents total destruction, declares the system stable, and ignores the pressure building inside it. It is tempting to place Kronika above the One Being and treat the Hourglass as the machine that created every realm. The games never demonstrate that clean hierarchy. Kronika shapes timelines. The One Being myth describes the substance divided into realms. Both ideas can operate at different levels, but any confident claim that Kronika personally built the One Being goes beyond what the story confirms. That uncertainty becomes relevant in the new era. Liu Kang can rewrite personal histories and political conditions, yet Earthrealm, Outworld, and the Netherrealm still exist. His control over time does not make him the owner of every cosmic layer. Even at his most powerful, he works with an inherited reality whose oldest foundations remain partly unexplained. And once the One Being is divided, the immediate problem becomes obvious. Who protects the pieces from being forced together again? The realms. The realms are separate dimensions, not distant countries on one planet. Each can contain its own worlds, species, gods, and natural laws. Portals allow travel between them, although powerful magic, divine permission, or special artifacts are often required. Earthrealm is the home of humanity and the primary territory Raiden protects. Outworld is a vast imperial realm that grows by absorbing conquered worlds. Edenia begins as an independent kingdom famous for beauty, longevity, and a royal family whose destruction will shape the entire saga. The Netherrealm is a domain of punishment and demonic power, where corrupted souls can be tortured, recruited, or transformed. Order Realm, also called Sado, builds its society around extreme control. Chaos Realm treats disorder as a principle worth defending. Smaller realms appear across the games as well. But these 6 carry most of the timeline's major conflicts. Conquest does not simply mean placing soldiers in a capital. A successful merger can pull the conquered realm into the conqueror's reality, altering its land and trapping its population inside a larger empire. Edenia becomes part of Outworld. Shao Kahn later tries to drag Earthrealm through the same process. If the merger finishes, liberation becomes far harder than winning one battle and sending an army home. The Elder Gods eventually regulate this through Mortal Kombat. An invading realm must win 10 consecutive tournaments before it can lawfully merge with the defending realm. The wording shifts across games, and the Elder Gods are spectacularly inconsistent referees. But the durable rule is simple: 10 straight victories open the path to conquest. That sounds like a safeguard. It also turns the survival of an entire world into a combat streak. Worse, the rule only works when the gods enforce it. Shao Kahn will hunt for loopholes. Quan Chi will manipulate people outside the tournament. Kronika will later reset the whole timeline from above. Mortal Kombat creates a legal barrier between realms, then spends the rest of its history showing how every powerful villain tries to go around it. Travel between these worlds creates its own politics. Raiden can summon champions and open routes, sorcerers can force portals, and devices such as the Eye of Kitchen can bypass ordinary limits. Ordinary civilians have no such freedom. When Outworld invades, most people cannot escape into another realm. They experience a dimensional war, as streets changing, souls vanishing, and armies appearing where no border existed a moment earlier. The gods' restrictions are equally uneven. Raiden can advise and defend, but his ability to participate changes when Earthrealm is being merged or when combat occurs in another domain. Elder Gods regularly demand proof that a rule has been violated before empowering him. Villains exploit the delay because conquest can move faster than divine judgment. Order Realm and Chaos Realm demonstrate that separation does not guarantee moral clarity. Saito's devotion to law produces oppression, prisons, and resistance. Chaos Realm's rejection of structure produces freedom for some and constant instability for others. Havok will later take the language of chaos and build a Titan dictatorship around it. A realm's defining principle can become the excuse used by whoever has enough power to enforce their interpretation. Keep that map in mind whenever a tournament victory appears to end the story. Saving Earthrealm does not remove the Netherrealm, repair Outworld, or prevent an enemy from crossing through Edenia. The heroes repeatedly win one jurisdiction, while the next villain prepares somewhere the current rules barely reach. The first major attack on Earthrealm happens long before the tournament system can save anybody, when one Elder God decides he should rule the others. Shinnok's War. Shinnok begins as an Elder God, which places him above most beings who will later threaten Earthrealm. That position is not enough for him. He wants control over the realms, and Earthrealm becomes the target of an ancient war, fought on a scale that later generations barely understand. His greatest weapon is an amulet able to weaken the barriers between worlds. With it, Shinnok can travel where the Elder Gods should not freely interfere and direct power across realms. Against ordinary warriors, that would be overwhelming. Earthrealm has Raiden. At this point, Raiden is already the realm's divine protector. Their conflict tears across the ancient world, and later lore connects the devastation to the destruction of entire civilizations and the displacement of species. The precise prehistoric details move around between biographies and retellings, but the outcome never changes. Raiden wins. He cannot simply execute a fellow god and erase the problem. Instead, Shinnok is stripped of his place among the Elder Gods and banished to the Netherrealm. The amulet is taken from him, and Raiden hides it in a temple protected by elemental guardians. Wind, earth, water, and fire stand between the artifact and anyone trying to recover it. Shinnok enters the Netherrealm as a prisoner. He eventually becomes its ruler. That tells us something important about punishment in Mortal Kombat. The Netherrealm does not neutralize powerful beings. It gives them an army of demons, access to corrupted souls, and centuries to plan revenge. Shinnok cannot leave freely without his amulet, but he can build influence through somebody willing to move between worlds on his behalf. That person is Quan Chi. Quan Chi is a sorcerer, necromancer, and professional exploiter of grief. He rarely begins with enough strength to defeat every opponent directly. He wins by learning what somebody wants, providing the image of it, and hiding the cost until they have already served him. Shinnok wants the amulet, Scorpion wants revenge, and Bihan wants to finish a contract. Each desire becomes a tool in the same plan. Thousands of years after Raiden's victory, Quan Chi will arrange a mission that returns the genuine amulet to Shinnok while convincing Raiden that it remains safe. The scheme begins with two rival assassin clans and ends with consequences stretching through almost every era of the timeline. Shinnok's position gives him a different relationship to death. Human warriors killed in battle may arrive inside a realm he controls. Their anger can be preserved, reshaped, and sent back. The punishment dimension becomes a recruitment system, which is why Scorpion, Noob Saibot, and the Revenants can carry old conflicts beyond the point where an ordinary life would end them. Raiden knows Shinnok remains dangerous, yet hiding the amulet creates dependence on secrecy. The Elemental Temple is formidable as long as nobody knows the root, the Guardians, or the artifact's purpose. Quan Chi defeats that defense without leading an army against it. He hires somebody skilled enough to pass each test and withholds the information that might make the assassin refuse. That is the gap between Shinnok and Quan Chi. Shinnok possesses greater divine power. Quan Chi is better at converting another person's motives into access. Their partnership survives because each believes the other is a tool. Shinnok sees a servant who can retrieve what belongs to him. Quan Chi sees an exiled god whose name, army, and amulet can elevate him. When their invasion arrives in Mortal Kombat 4, Liu Kang can defeat Shinnok in direct conflict. Quan Chi remains dangerous because he prepared for his master's loss. The servant understands contingency better than the god. Before we reach that mission, however, Outworld develops a threat Raiden cannot contain with one ancient victory. Its first emperor is so difficult to kill that his closest advisor decides to poison him. Onaga's Empire. Before Shao Kahn rules Outworld, the throne belongs to Onaga, the Dragon King. Onaga commands an empire built around personal dominance. His most terrifying asset is the Dragon Army, an enormous force of preserved soldiers who can be restored and sent into battle again. A conventional rebellion faces a ruler with tremendous strength, knowledge of magic, and an army designed to outlast its enemies. How do you overthrow somebody whose troops are already waiting for resurrection? Onaga's ambition extends beyond territory. He pursues immortality because permanent life would make permanent rule possible. The Dragon King's power creates the appearance that Outworld's future has already been decided. Subjects can obey him, enemies can die opposing him, and neither choice seems capable of changing the throne. Shao Kahn serves as one of Onaga's advisors. At this stage, he is not yet the Roaring Emperor known across the tournament era. He watches, learns, and recognizes that a direct challenge would probably fail, so he chooses the one battlefield where Onaga's physical power means nothing. He poisons him. The betrayal succeeds before Onaga can complete his plan for eternal life. Shao takes the throne, and history moves forward as if the Dragon King has been permanently removed. His preserved army remains hidden. More importantly, a dragon egg retains the means for his spirit to return through a new body. That delayed resurrection explains several developments that initially look unrelated. Quan Chi later discovers the dormant dragon army and needs souls to animate it, which gives him a reason to ally with Shang Tsung. Reptile eventually becomes the vessel for Onaga's rebirth. Shujinko spends most of his life gathering the Kamidogu because a false guide is secretly preparing the Dragon King's return. Onaga therefore operates in two periods at once. His first empire creates Shao Kahn. His unfinished immortality plan waits beneath Shao Kahn's entire reign, ready to become the next catastrophe after the Deadly Alliance believes it has already won. The Dragon Army changes the economics of conquest. Shao Kahn expands by absorbing living populations and forcing their warriors into service. Onaga can revive soldiers whose loyalty has been preserved with their bodies. He does not need to persuade every new generation or rebuild after every defeat. His military power has been stored. That is why Quan Chi's discovery is so valuable. A sorcerer who commands the army could bypass years of recruitment, while Shang Tsung can provide the one resource the preserved bodies lack. Their alliance becomes an industrial process. Steal souls, animate soldiers, and inherit the infrastructure of an older empire. Onaga's physical abilities make the plan even worse. He can overpower the Deadly Alliance after they defeat Raiden's heroes, survive Raiden's self-destruction, and continue moving while carrying several artifacts. His eventual defeat requires Shujinko to break the Kamidogu protection first. Raw force alone has already failed at palace-destroying scale. Shao Kahn's poison delays the Dragon King rather than resolving him. Mortal Kombat rulers rarely disappear when an ambitious successor takes the throne. Their armies, souls, heirs, and artifacts remain embedded in the next regime. Outworld's history accumulates emperors instead of replacing them cleanly. And was Shao Kahn any better for Outworld? Absolutely not. Onaga wants permanent control, while Shao turns conquest into a machine that keeps feeding itself. Shao Kahn's betrayal. With Onaga dead, Shao Kahn claims Outworld and reshapes it around expansion. Every realm he absorbs adds territory, soldiers, magic, and new species to his empire. Defeated rulers disappear into his history, while useful warriors are offered service, slavery, or death. Xiao's strength is real. He can overpower elite combatants, wield devastating soul magic, and survive defeats that would kill most characters permanently. Yet his greatest advantage is the system surrounding him. Outworld contains Tarkatans, Shokan, sorcerers, assassins, and armies gathered from previous conquests. Fighting Shao Kahn eventually means fighting everybody he has already conquered. Shang Tsung becomes essential to that machine. The sorcerer can steal souls, change his appearance, and prolong his life through the energy of others. Shao uses him as an agent and tournament master. If Outworld can win 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments, the Emperor gains divine permission to merge Earthrealm without openly defying the Elder Gods. That distinction matters because Shao Kahn is never satisfied with a fair contest. The tournament is one route to ownership, so he invests in champions capable of dominating it for generations. When that fails, he stages a rematch in Outworld. When that fails, he resurrects Sindel inside Earthrealm to create a new path through the barrier. Rules interest him only as obstacles with exploitable wording. His reign also changes how the title Khan is understood. It becomes the imperial rank claimed by rulers of Outworld, not part of Xiao's birth name. Kitana will later become Khan after defeating him. In Liu Kang's new era, Xiao is reduced to a general serving Empress Sindel, because Liu Kang deliberately rebuilds history without placing him on the throne. In the original timeline, no protector edits away Xiao's opportunity. His empire grows until it reaches Edenia, and that conquest gives Mortal Kombat its most damaged royal family. Shao Kahn understands spectacle. His armor, hammer, and throne make power visible, while public executions and tournaments convert fear into political theater. Goro's 5-century reign is valuable because every victory teaches Earthrealm that resistance is temporary. Shang Tsung's island is valuable because challengers enter a space controlled by Outworld while believing formal rules still protect them. His soul magic deepens the threat. During the Earthrealm invasion, Shao does not merely occupy cities. He claims the souls of most inhabitants and uses them as fuel. Bodies, territory, and spiritual identity become resources of empire. A realm merged into Outworld can lose the physical border separating it and the people capable of remembering independence. Even his defeats feed later conflicts. Mileena's loyalty creates a succession crisis after his death. Kotal Khan's opposition creates another idea of Outworld rule. Reiko chases the image of imperial strength. In Aftermath, Sindel restores Xiao's confidence and helps him crush the coalition that moved beyond him. Removing the Emperor does not remove the political culture built around his throne. Liu Kang recognizes this when he creates the new era. He rewrites Xiao's social position, placing him beneath Sindel as a general. Even then, military prestige gives Xiao another path toward rebellion. Power adapts to the conditions history provides. The fall of Edenia. Edenia is ruled by King Jared and Queen Sindel, with their young daughter Kitana positioned to inherit the realm. Its people live for thousands of years, its culture is established, and its armies resist Outworld. None of that saves it. Shao Kahn defeats Edenia in Mortal Kombat and merges it into his empire. Jared is killed. Xiao takes Sindel as queen and raises Kitana as though she were his loyal daughter, hiding the fact that he destroyed her home and murdered her father. Kitana becomes one of Outworld's deadliest assassins. She believes her service protects the only family and kingdom she has left. Xiao still prepares a replacement in case she discovers the truth. Shang Tsung combines Tarkatan blood with Kitana's likeness to create Mileena, a clone designed to match her appearance while possessing the aggression and teeth of a Tarkatan warrior. Mileena wants the legitimacy that Kitana receives naturally. Kitana eventually realizes the sister she was given is also proof that her father never trusted her. Their rivalry is personal, political, and deliberately engineered by Shao Kahn. He creates two daughters, keeps both insecure, and benefits whenever they attack each other instead of him. Sindel's history becomes one of the franchise's sharpest contradictions. In the classic account, she cannot endure life beside the conqueror who destroyed Edenia. She dies, and her soul creates a magical ward that prevents Xiao from entering Earthrealm directly. That protection later becomes the loophole behind Mortal Kombat 3. Shang Tsung resurrects her on Earthrealm, allowing Xiao to cross the barrier to reclaim his queen. The 2011 reboot initially uses the same basic tragedy. Sindel is restored under Quan Chi's influence and weaponized against Earthrealm's defenders. Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath later rewrites her motives. That version says, Sindel willingly chose Shao Kahn, despised Jared's weakness, and was murdered by Quan Chi when her loyalty became inconvenient. Those accounts cannot be blended without breaking the events built on them. So, for the original and 2011 eras, Sindel is the conquered queen whose death protects Earthrealm. When Aftermath changes that history, we will treat it as the retcon it is. Edenia's fall creates Kitana's rebellion, Melina's claim to power, Sindel's resurrection, and Jared's eventual return through Ermac. One conquered realm keeps shaping the story thousands of years later. Kitana's discovery is delayed because deception surrounds her from birth. Xiao gives her status, training, and a place at court. Her memories of Edenia are controlled, and anybody who could contradict the official history is dead, imprisoned, or afraid. Loyalty built under those conditions is complicated. She serves both the man who raised her and the man who destroyed the life she should have inherited. Melina experiences the opposite injury. She knows her position depends on replacing somebody else. Xiao wants Kitana's face with obedience he can trust, while Shang Tsung's creation gives Melina appetites and features the court treats as shameful. Her hatred of Kitana grows inside a system that never allows her to be secure on her own terms. Sindel's ward makes personal grief operate at cosmic scale. One queen's death blocks an emperor from entering a realm. Her resurrection becomes a military strategy. Her mind and body are fought over by sorcerers, rulers, and daughters who need different versions of her to be true. That is why the Aftermath rewrite lands so violently. It does more than make Sindel cruel. It changes the meaning of the ward, Jared's marriage, and Kitana's understanding of both parents. We can follow the later timeline claim without pretending it was what Mortal Kombat 3 originally communicated. Earthrealm is next, but the tournament rules give it a chance Edenia never received. For one generation, that chance appears to work. The Great Kung Lao. The Great Kung Lao enters Mortal Kombat as a Shaolin champion representing Earthrealm. This is centuries before Liu Kang and the modern Kung Lao, when Shang Tsung is still Outworld's leading fighter, rather than the old man waiting on his island. Kung Lao defeats him. That victory interrupts Outworld's progress and proves a human champion can stop the Empire without commanding an army. For the Shaolin, it becomes the foundation of a legacy. For Shang Tsung, it is a humiliation that demands a stronger answer. Outworld's answer is Goro, Prince of the Shokan. Goro has 4 arms, enormous strength, and the endurance to tear through challengers who would overwhelm a normal fighter. He defeats the Great Kung Lao and kills him, beginning one of the longest reigns in tournament history. Earthrealm does not lose its freedom that day because Outworld still needs 10 consecutive victories, although the result begins a countdown. One tournament becomes 2 and then 5 as generations of Earthrealm fighters enter, fail, and disappear while Goro remains champion. By the time the modern tournament approaches, he has held the title for roughly 500 years, and Outworld has won 9 times in a row. That makes the first game far more desperate than its simple island setup suggests. Liu Kang is not entering one isolated competition. He is arriving at the final legal defense before Earthrealm can be absorbed like Edenia. The Great Kung Lao also becomes a symbol every later era wants to revisit. His descendant, the modern Kung Lao, lives under the weight of that reputation. He knows his ancestor defeated Shang Tsung, while he is often treated as the second Shaolin champion beside Liu Kang. Pride and insecurity grow from the same legacy. In Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath, Fire, God. Liu Kang visits the Great Kung Lao shortly after his famous victory. The scene suggests Liu can guide history differently once he controls the hourglass. Mortal Kombat 1 does not give us a complete account of that altered life, but Liu Kang's new era clearly remembers the ancient champion as part of Earthrealm's tradition. For the original timeline, his fate is fixed. He wins once, Goro kills him, and the following 9 tournaments place Earthrealm 1 loss from destruction. By now, Shao Kahn has the champion he needs. Shang Tsung has prepared the island. Sonya is chasing Kano toward the trap. Johnny Cage wants to prove his abilities are real, and Liu Kang is ready to represent the Shaolin. The modern Kung Lao's relationship to the legend becomes important because admiration can become a trap. He wants to honor the Great Kung Lao and prove he deserves the same recognition. Raiden's uncertainty during the reboot makes that desire look like a possible answer. If the descendant becomes champion, perhaps history can return to the path interrupted by Goro. His success against Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and Kintaro appears to support the idea. Shao Kahn kills him outside a formal exchange, demonstrating that legacy offers inspiration without protection. The Emperor does not care whether ancestry or audience expectation says Kung Lao earned a final fight. The Great Kung Lao's own victory contains a similar warning. Defeating Shang Tsung creates safety for one generation, not permanent security. Outworld replaces the failed champion with Goro and commits to the long game. Earthrealm celebrates a tournament while its opponent studies the weakness exposed by the result. By the 10th loss, absorption becomes legitimate in the eyes of the Elder Gods. That creates the franchise's first countdown and establishes why Liu Kang matters before he has personal history with Shao Kahn. He fights for every person who has never heard of the tournament and will only understand it when their realm begins disappearing. One final piece moves into place before the tournament begins. Quan Chi needs Shinnok's amulet, and he knows exactly which assassin can steal it. Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Sub-Zero. Quan Chi approaches two rival assassin clans with the same job. The Lin Kuei sends Bihan, the original Sub-Zero. The Shirai Ryu sends Hanzo Hasashi, the fighter who will become Scorpion. Their rivalry is genuine, but the mission has been designed to make it lethal. Both men search a Shaolin temple for a map leading to Shinnok's hidden amulet. Bihan reaches the objective first and kills Hanzo in combat. He removes the map and leaves behind the body Quan Chi needs. Then Quan Chi pays the Lin Kuei by eliminating their competition. He massacres the Shirai Ryu, including Hanzo's family, and allows the dead assassin to believe Bihan was responsible for everything. Hanzo's grief becomes an identity that can be aimed wherever Quan Chi wants. In the Nether Realm, he returns as Scorpion. Bihan follows the stolen map through Raiden's elemental temple. He defeats the gods guarding earth, water, fire, and wind, reaches the chamber, and takes the amulet. From his perspective, this is a difficult contract completed successfully. From Raiden's perspective, a human assassin has just removed the lock from an imprisoned god. Raiden confronts him and explains what the artifact actually does. Quan Chi has already escaped into the Netherrealm, where Shinnok can use the amulet to leave his prison. Bihan insists he is only a thief doing his job, but Raiden gives him a brutal answer. Only somebody carrying darkness inside his soul could have entered the Netherrealm freely. If Bihan wants to prevent the disaster, he has to go after Quan Chi himself. The mission changes shape completely. Sub-Zero enters the Netherrealm, fights through its defenders, and encounters three women serving Quan Chi: Kia, Jataka, and Serena. Serena is different from the others. She has lived under Quan Chi's control and sees Bihan as a possible route out. Bihan spares her, and she later helps him during the confrontation with Quan Chi. That act of mercy matters because it shows the original Sub-Zero is not the emotionless monster Scorpion imagines. His soul is corrupted, but his future is not settled. Serena's attempt to leave Quan Chi ends violently, and Bihan continues towards Shinnok. He defeats the fallen Elder God while Shinnok is separated from the full power of his amulet, recovers the object, and escapes the Netherrealm. Earthrealm appears safe. Raiden takes the artifact and returns it to protection, except Quan Chi planned for failure. The amulet Bihan brings back is a copy. Quan Chi keeps the genuine one and gives Shinnok enough confidence to continue preparing his eventual invasion. Raiden believes the lock has been restored, while the real key remains with the sorcerer who arranged the entire mission. Look at how much Quan Chi gains from one contract. Hanzo is dead and available for recruitment. The Shirai Ryu are gone. Bihan's soul has moved closer to the Netherrealm. Shinnok's true amulet is hidden from Raiden. Serena's rebellion has been punished. Almost every participant believes they understood the job, and almost every one of them was manipulated. Bihan then receives another assignment. Shang Tsung invites him to the Mortal Kombat tournament, and the Lin Kuei orders him to assassinate the sorcerer for a wealthy client. Scorpion will be waiting on the island with a completely different target. Bihan's encounter with Raiden leaves a question hanging over his fate. Raiden warns that the assassin's soul carries evil, but he also gives him the mission because change remains possible. Bihan spares Serena when killing her would be easier. He returns the apparent amulet rather than keeping its power. These choices complicate the later claim that Noob Saibot was always inevitable. Quan Chi engineers conditions that push him toward it. He places Bihan against Scorpion, withholds responsibility for the Shirai Ryu massacre, and ensures Hanzo receives a supernatural second life organized around revenge. When Scorpion kills Bihan, Quan Chi gains access to a soul darkened by years of assassination and an unjust death. The amulet swap is equally calculated. A fake artifact does not need to reproduce every property forever. It needs to survive Raiden's inspection long enough for certainty to return. Once the Protector believes the temple's failure has been repaired, he stops searching for the real object. Serena remains evidence that Quan Chi's servants can resist him. Her attempt to escape fails here, but she reappears across later stories and in the new era. Mortal Kombat repeatedly returns to characters born or trapped in the Netherrealm, who choose against the identity imposed on them. One brother enters as Sub-Zero. He will not leave with that name. Mortal Kombat Special Forces. While gods and assassins move Shinnok's amulet, the Special Forces are fighting a more human enemy. Kano escapes custody with members of the Black Dragon and sends Jax Briggs into a pursuit involving hidden bases, stolen technology, and a portal to Outworld. Kano's objective is the Eye of Chidian, an artifact capable of opening gateways between realms. The exact technology and chronology sit awkwardly beside later games, so the durable result matters more than every mission. Jax stops the plan, Kano survives, and the feud continues. Jax's role changes with the series. Special Forces gives him the central pursuit before Sonya becomes trapped in the tournament. Later games make him one of Earthrealm's most reliable defenders, then take his arms, his life, and his agency through cybernetics and revenant control. The prequel shows the man before cosmic war consumes his career. Kano survives for the opposite reason. He is useful to whichever power needs weapons, access, or betrayal. The Black Dragon is not an empire, yet its criminal network connects Earthrealm technology to Outworld buyers. Kano keeps finding the seam between local crime and realm war, then sells to both sides. The Eye of Chidian never becomes a defining artifact. Its existence reinforces a recurring vulnerability. Portals can be opened by objects small enough to steal. An invasion does not always begin with an emperor breaking the sky. Sometimes it begins with a criminal carrying the right device through a warehouse. That feud pulls Sonya Blade toward Shang Tsung's island. She believes she is chasing a criminal. Shang Tsung knows she is bringing another capable fighter into a tournament where Earthrealm is one loss from conquest. Mortal Kombat. Shang Tsung's island looks like the center of the first tournament, but it is really the end of a 5-century losing streak. Goro has defeated every champion Earthrealm sent after the Great Kung Lao. One more Outworld victory gives Shao Kahn the realm. Liu Kang arrives for the Shaolin with the clearest purpose: win the tournament and restore the honor Goro took from the Order. Raiden acts as guide and protector, although the Elder Gods limit how directly he can interfere. Johnny Cage thinks his invitation is a chance to prove that his film career is built on genuine martial arts. Sonya follows Kano and discovers too late that Shang Tsung controls the island. Kano sees profit and survival. None of them begins with the same understanding of the stakes. That gives Shang Tsung leverage. He can threaten Sonya's team, promise Kano wealth, and feed Johnny's ego while Goro waits above the bracket as an almost unbeatable final champion. Scorpion and Sub-Zero arrive with their own war. Quan Chi has shown Scorpion images of the Shirai Ryu massacre and allowed him to place Bihan at the center of it. When the two fight, Scorpion kills Sub-Zero. The revenge feels complete for a moment, yet he has murdered the wrong architect and delivered Bihan's soul directly into Quan Chi's reach. Bihan becomes Noob Saibot, a shadowy Netherrealm warrior stripped of much of the remaining humanity his brother will later fight to recover. Scorpion learns the truth only years afterward. Quan Chi has converted one dead rival into a servant while keeping the other trapped inside the revenge that serves him. The original 1992 game offers separate arcade endings rather than one cinematic campaign, so later games establish the combination that counts. Liu Kang defeats Goro, ending the Shokan's extraordinary reign. He then defeats Shang Tsung and breaks Outworld's 9-tournament streak. Earthrealm survives. The victory does not neatly remove every enemy. Goro survives in the broader original continuity. Shang Tsung escapes the island's collapse and returns to Shao Kahn. Sonya and Kano end up trapped in Outworld, where their private chase becomes part of the next inter-realm crisis. Johnny, Liu, and Raiden return knowing the tournament was only one front in a much larger war. This result should have reset Outworld's progress and forced Shao Kahn to begin another 10 victories. Instead, Shang Tsung turns failure into a proposal. If Earthrealm's champions can be provoked into entering Outworld for another tournament, they can be killed away from the protections of their own realm. Liu Kang's victory changes his position as much as the result. He is no longer one promising Shaolin among several challengers. He becomes Earthrealm's proven champion, which means future plans assume he will deliver the final answer. That expectation strengthens the heroes while creating the safety net the Deadly Alliance later targets. Johnny Cage begins a different transformation. He enters to validate his image and leaves knowing gods, sorcerers, and realm conquest are real. His humor remains, but it cannot be dismissed as evidence that he misses the stakes. By Mortal Kombat X, the actor becomes one of the adults holding Earthrealm together after Liu's death. Sonya and Kano's entrapment prevents the tournament from closing neatly. Earthrealm wins its legal defense while 2 participants remain inside enemy territory. Their absence gives Jax a personal reason to cross realms and gives Shao Kahn hostages whose recovery can pull the champions into his next arena. Shang Tsung survives because failure is one of his strongest skills. He can return to a ruler who threatens to kill him and sell that ruler a more dangerous plan. His restored youth becomes both reward and investment. Shao Kahn restores Shang Tsung's youth and accepts the gamble. Earthrealm has finally won, and Outworld responds by changing the venue. Mortal Kombat Tico. Why would Liu Kang and his allies accept an immediate rematch after saving the world? Because Shao Kahn makes refusal cost more than participation. Outworld forces attack the Wushu Academy and slaughter members of the Shaolin Order. Sonya and Kano remain trapped beyond Earthrealm. Shang Tsung presents the new tournament as a challenge, but the violence around it turns the invitation into bait. Earthrealm's defenders cannot ignore. The move works. Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Johnny Cage, Jax, and Raiden enter Outworld. Jax wants to recover Sonya. Kung Lao wants to prove he can carry the legacy of the great Kung Lao rather than remain in Liu Kang's shadow. Liu returns because leaving Outworld unanswered would invite further attacks. The younger Sub-Zero, Kuai Liang, also enters while searching for the brother killed on Shang Tsung's island. Scorpion initially sees the same uniform and assumes his enemy has returned. Once he realizes this is Bi-Han's younger brother, he chooses not to repeat the murder. In several versions of the story, that recognition creates a promise. Scorpion will protect Kuai Liang as compensation for killing Bi-Han. Back in Earthrealm, the Lin Kuei begin the Cyber Initiative. Grandmaster technicians intend to preserve loyal assassins by placing their minds inside mechanized bodies. Cyrax and Sector accept or undergo the process. Kuai Liang and Smoke resist. Smoke is captured and converted, while Sub-Zero escapes and becomes an enemy of his own clan. Inside Outworld, Kitana finally investigates the lies surrounding her life. She learns that Mileena was created as her replacement and that Shao Kahn conquered Edenia. The assassin raised to enforce Outworld's empire turns against its ruler. Her rebellion gives Liu Kang an ally who understands the palace from within. Liu defeats Kintaro and reaches Shao Kahn. The Emperor is stronger than Shang Tsung and far more dangerous than Goro, but Liu Kang beats him in his own realm. That should settle the question. Shao Kahn has lost the legal tournament and the illegal rematch. Yet, he survives again, and his next plan abandons the tournament completely. Kitana's rebellion changes the meaning of the rematch. Earthrealm is no longer fighting every resident of Outworld as one enemy. Shao Kahn's empire contains conquered people who want him gone, and Kitana can connect those internal fractures to Liu Kang's campaign. That distinction becomes more important later. Outworld produces Bo Raicho, Jade, Li Mei, Kotal, Baraka, and communities whose interests differ from whoever occupies the throne. Treating the realm itself as evil would serve its conqueror by erasing the people he absorbed. The younger Sub-Zero leaves with an unresolved double inheritance. He carries Bi-Han's title while rejecting the actions that darkened it. He becomes a fugitive from the Lin Kuei for refusing conversion. Scorpion's decision to spare him opens the first crack in Quan Chi's manufactured feud. Shao Kahn's defeat in his own realm damages the image of inevitability. Liu's group enters Outworld, frees allies, and defeats the Emperor publicly. That humiliation pushes Shao toward the Sindel plan, where legal ambiguity and mass soul theft replace the controlled competition he has now lost twice. He will resurrect Sindel on Earthrealm, cross the barrier through his claim over her, and begin the merger before the defenders can reach an arena. Mortal Kombat 3. Sindel's resurrection creates the loophole Shao Kahn needs. Because her soul has been reborn inside Earthrealm, the Emperor can cross into the realm to reclaim his queen. Outworld's invasion arrives with him, and the merger begins. This does not resemble the controlled island tournament. Cities are devastated. Most human souls are stripped from their bodies and drawn toward Shao Kahn, leaving only chosen warriors and specially protected communities capable of resisting. Raiden's power inside the invasion is restricted, because Earthrealm is already being pulled under Outworld's control. The remaining fighters are scattered. Nightwolf protects his tribal lands through sacred magic. Stryker enters the conflict as a police officer facing an invasion no normal emergency system can explain. Cabal is badly injured and transformed by respirators and life support equipment. Jax and Sonya organize resistance through the special forces. Liu Kang fights toward the Emperor while Kitana tries to free her mother. The Lin Kuei use the chaos to continue hunting Kuai Liang. Cyrax, Sector, and the cybernetic Smoke enter the invasion with orders that have nothing to do with saving Earthrealm. Sector embraces the machine identity and the obedience it demands. Cyrax begins showing conflict. Smoke's friendship with Sub-Zero pushes against his programming until enough of his humanity returns to let him resist. This smaller chase tells us why the Cyber Initiative matters. The Lin Kuei believe removing emotion will create perfect fighters. Instead, memory keeps returning as a source of choice. Smoke remains recognizable because loyalty survives beneath the metal. Sector becomes dangerous because he embraces the command structure voluntarily. Kitana reaches Sindel and breaks Shao Kahn's control over her. With the queen restored, Edenia's royal family can finally resist the empire from within. Liu Kang defeats Shao Kahn again, halting the merger and returning the stolen souls. Earthrealm survives and Edenia separates from Outworld after thousands of years. Jared remains dead, Melina remains Kitana's rival, and the political damage of conquest does not disappear, but the realm itself is free. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Mortal Kombat Trilogy add fighters and events around this same invasion. They do not need to be treated as two more global attacks. They expand the roster caught inside one campaign. Some individual fates remain messy. Johnny Cage dies and returns in versions of the original era. Kung Lao appears badly injured, dead, or retired depending on the release and biography. Mortal Kombat continuity often decides an arcade ending mattered only when a sequel builds on it. The stable outcome is what carries us forward. Shao Kahn loses, Earthrealm survives, and Edenia is restored. The invasion demonstrates why a realm merger is harder to resist than an army. Earthrealm's defenders cannot identify one front line. Shao Kahn's fortress, soul magic, and troops appear inside a world already being transformed. Survivors need supernatural protection simply to remain present long enough to fight. Nightwolf's role becomes especially valuable. His protection of tribal land proves local spiritual power can create pockets beyond the Emperor's immediate reach. The Resistance survives as scattered islands, then reconnects through Raiden's guidance. The Cyber Ninjas add another invasion within the invasion. At the moment humanity faces soul theft, the Lin Kuei devote resources to forcing one assassin back into obedience. Sector's loyalty shows how institutions preserve a harmful objective even during extinction. Smoke's resistance shows programming is never as complete as the Grandmaster's promise. Shao Kahn's loss restores stolen souls, but death and restoration are already unstable categories. Fighters vanish between editions, reappear through biographies, and carry injuries forward selectively. That flexibility later becomes part of the plot through revenants and temporal resets. That victory removes Outworld as the immediate threat. It also leaves Edenia exposed just as Shinnok finally escapes the Netherrealm with the genuine amulet Quan Chi kept hidden. The enemy Raiden buried before recorded history is back, and this time, he attacks the heavens first. Mortal Kombat 4. Shinnok returns with an army drawn from the Netherrealm and begins his campaign through Edenia. Tanya, presented as an Edenian survivor seeking help, betrays her own realm and allows Shinnok's forces through its defenses. The fallen Elder God then turns toward the Elder Gods who cast him out and the Earthrealm Protector who defeated him. The conflict expands beyond the familiar tournament rivalry. Fujin, the God of Wind, and one of the Elemental Guardians, Bi-Han defeated, joins Earthrealm's defense. Kai fights beside Liu Kang. Reiko serves Shinnok while carrying ambitions connected to Shao Kahn's power. Jarek represents the surviving Black Dragon network. The roster grows, but the center of the story remains the ancient partnership between Shinnok and Quan Chi. Shinnok believes Quan Chi recovered his amulet. That is only partly true. Quan Chi gives his master a duplicate while keeping the real artifact for himself, meaning Shinnok's full power remains dependent on the servant he assumes he controls. Liu Kang defeats Shinnok and ends the invasion. Raiden and the Elder Gods contain the fallen god again. Earthrealm has now survived Goro, Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, and Shinnok through the same broad pattern. Its champions confront the invading ruler and win. Scorpion's story ends differently. He enters believing Sub-Zero murdered his family and clan. Quan Chi finally reveals the truth because he thinks Scorpion is trapped beneath his control. Quan Chi organized the massacre. Scorpion responds by dragging him into the Netherrealm. For Quan Chi, that is dangerous rather than fatal. The Netherrealm strengthens him, and he knows how to move through its structures. He spends years pursued and tortured by Scorpion before discovering a route out. That escape brings him to the preserved army of Onaga. Mortal Kombat Gold adds fighters such as Cyrax, Sector, Kitana, and Melina around the same conflict, while its individual endings remain conditional unless later stories confirm them. The durable result is direct. Shinnok loses, Liu Kang lives, and Quan Chi escapes with the genuine amulet. The classic tournament era closes with another Earthrealm victory, yet Quan Chi now possesses the object that opens realms, knowledge of an immortal army, and enough hatred for Scorpion to plan beyond Shinnok. He needs one partner who can fill Onaga's dead soldiers with souls. Shang Tsung is the perfect candidate, and together, they are about to accomplish something no previous villain managed. Shinnok's attack reveals the limit of divine rank. An Elder God can command demons and threaten the heavens, yet a mortal champion can defeat him once his access to the amulet is compromised. Power in Mortal Kombat depends on artifacts, realms, and conditions. A fighter who looks unbeatable in one location may be vulnerable after losing the object that connects him to it. Tanya's betrayal keeps Edenia from enjoying simple liberation. The realm escapes Shao Kahn and immediately faces an enemy invited through its own political fracture. Her motives change across continuities, but the function here is clear. Restoring a kingdom does not restore automatic unity. Fujin's participation matters for Raiden's development. Earthrealm has more than one god capable of protecting it, although Raiden remains the figure most personally bound to its champions. In Aftermath, Fujin's patience and connection to mortals will make him an appealing contrast to Raiden's harsher decisions. Quan Chi survives because he never surrendered the genuine source of power. The fake amulet lets his master believe authority has returned. Holding the real one gives the servant an escape route, bargaining chip and advantage in every alliance that follows. They are going to kill Liu Kang. Mortal Kombat, Deadly Alliance. Quan Chi escapes Scorpion's pursuit by finding a strange structure in the Netherrealm. Inside, he discovers evidence of Onaga's preserved dragon army and a way back into Outworld. The soldiers can be restored, but empty bodies do not create an army. They need souls. Shang Tsung has built his entire existence around stealing them. The two sorcerers form the Deadly Alliance, and their plan is frightening because it begins by removing the people who would normally stop it. They approach Shao Kahn first. The Emperor appears to die during their attack, taking Outworld's strongest ruler off the board. Later games reveal he anticipated betrayal and used a magical decoy, but Quan Chi and Shang Tsung believe the throne is empty. Then they travel to Earthrealm and ambush Liu Kang. Shang Tsung approaches in disguise while Quan Chi attacks from behind. Liu fights back, yet the combined assault gives him no clean chance to recover. Shang Tsung breaks his neck and consumes his soul. For years, Liu Kang has been the answer waiting at the end of every invasion. He defeats Goro, Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn, and Shinnok. The Deadly Alliance understands that fighting through his allies and meeting him in a final chamber would repeat the same losing structure, so they murder him before the new campaign has properly begun. Raiden is furious with the Elder Gods' refusal to intervene. Having recently been elevated among them, he gives up that position and returns to guide the mortals directly. He assembles Johnny Cage, Sonya, Jax, Kung Lao, Kitana, and other defenders. Kenshi, a blind swordsman whose ancestors' souls were stolen by Shang Tsung, brings his own reason to attack the palace. Bo Raicho trains fighters while refusing to represent Outworld against Earthrealm, the realm of his birth. The heroes travel toward Shang Tsung's palace while the sorcerers use a Soul Nado to feed the dragon army. Individual missions produce victories, but the final battle ends in disaster. The Deadly Alliance defeats Earthrealm's champions, taking down Kung Lao, Kitana, Jax, Sonya, and Johnny. Raiden reaches the sorcerers after the others have been eliminated and loses as well. Then, the Alliance immediately breaks. With their shared enemies gone, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi fight over the prize. Quan Chi wins. For a few seconds, he appears to stand above a dead champion, a defeated god, and the sorcerer whose power made the army possible. Deadly Alliance changes the franchise's center of gravity. Earlier games begin with a ruler attacking a realm and champions assembling in response. Here, the villains conduct targeted removals, build infrastructure, and let the defenders discover the plan after its decisive advantages are in place. Kenshi represents the people Shang Tsung damaged before joining Quan Chi. The sorcerer tricks him into opening a tomb connected to his ancestors, takes the souls released from it, and leaves Kenshi blind. Sento later allows the swordsman to perceive the world through those same ancestral spirits. His power grows from surviving a theft Shang expected to finish him. Frost creates another fracture inside the defenders. As Sub-Zero's student, she can help rebuild the Lin Kuei around Choice. Her hunger for recognition turns training into resentment, and later timelines repeatedly let that insecurity be exploited. Raiden's resignation from the Elder Gods exposes his defining loyalty. He can accept less cosmic authority if it lets him stand beside Earthrealm. The decision is admirable, yet it concentrates responsibility on a protector who increasingly believes he alone must correct every failure. The palace doors open, and Onaga walks in. The dragon army was never simply an abandoned weapon waiting for a new owner. Its original king has spent decades preparing a return, and one well-meaning student has unknowingly rebuilt the power he needs. Shujinko's quest. Shujinko's story begins with a promise. As a young martial artist, he wants to become a great warrior and serve the Elder Gods. A glowing projection calling itself Damashi appears, and claims those gods have selected him for a sacred mission. The task sounds extraordinary. Travel across the realms, learn from their greatest fighters, and recover 6 Kamidogu. Damashi will provide guidance. Shujinko will become the instrument of a divine plan. Why would he doubt it? Damashi knows secrets, opens paths, and rewards progress. Every successful mission confirms the identity Shujinko desperately wants. The deception works because it does not ask him to abandon his values. It gives those values a heroic stage. His journey stretches across more than 40 years. In Earthrealm, he trains and meets warriors whose younger lives precede the modern tournament. In Outworld, he encounters Imperial power and resistance. He crosses the Netherrealm, Order Realm, Chaos Realm, and Edenia, learning abilities from fighters connected to each world. The changing face and age of Shujinko become a timeline in themselves. Deception's Conquest mode contains optional errands, comic encounters, and chronology that does not always survive close inspection. The central path is what matters. Shujinko gathers each Kamidogu and places them where Damashi directs, believing he is assembling a defense for the Elder Gods. Along the way, he receives warning signs. Some realms treat his mission with suspicion. His actions release prisoners, empower enemies, and interfere with conflicts he does not understand. Shujinko keeps going because stopping would mean admitting that decades of sacrifice might have served the wrong master. That is Damashi's greatest weapon. Once somebody has invested a lifetime in a mission, the next step feels easier than questioning every step for it. The final revelation comes when Shujinko has completed the collection. Damashi is not a messenger of the Elder Gods. He is the disembodied consciousness of Onaga. After Shao Kahn poisoned the Dragon King, Onaga's spirit waited for a route back. He needed the Kamidogu gathered, and the barriers between realms weakened. Shujinko accomplished both while believing he was preventing catastrophe. The champion who wanted to protect existence has spent his life preparing an emperor's resurrection. Onaga's physical return uses another victim. Reptile has been losing his sense of identity while desperately searching for a future for the nearly extinct Saurian race. Near the dragon egg, his body becomes the vessel for Onaga's rebirth. The loyal servant is consumed by the king he never meant to restore. Shujinko's age makes the deception unusually painful. He does not lose one battle or kingdom. He loses the interpretation of his own life. Friendships, training, and travel were real, but the purpose connecting them was supplied by an enemy. When Damashi disappears, Shujinko has to decide whether every skill gained through a false mission can still be used for something honest. His travels make him a living bridge between realms that rarely cooperate. He studies under masters, encounters rulers, and learns how each society frames duty. Order Realm rewards obedience, while Chaos Realm attacks the idea that a mission needs consistent meaning. Neither extreme saves him, because he carries Damashi's authority internally. The name becomes a warning in Mortal Kombat 1. When another benefactor calls himself Damashi, informed viewers know the shape of the deception before Liu Kang confirms the identity. The new victims hear exactly what Shujinko heard. Your difficult life has a hidden purpose, and I alone can unlock it. This hidden quest runs underneath almost every event we have already covered. While Liu Kang wins tournaments, Shujinko gathers another object. While Shao Kahn invades Earthrealm, the Dragon King's plan continues. While Quan Chi and Shang Tsung discover the army, the person holding its true key is approaching the final Kamidogu. Onaga reaches the palace at the exact moment the Deadly Alliance destroys itself. Quan Chi, Shang Tsung, and Raiden have exhausted one another, and the Dragon King arrives with a body, an army, and the artifacts capable of making him far more powerful than during his first reign. Mortal Kombat. Deception. Quan Chi has just defeated Shang Tsung when Onaga enters. The two sorcerers attack together and fail. Raiden rises, joins the same enemies who killed his allies, and pours his divine power into one desperate assault. It still is not enough. Raiden releases his essence in an explosion that destroys the palace, kills the sorcerers' physical bodies, and tears through everything around Onaga. The Dragon King walks out of it. He takes Shinnok's amulet from the ruins and assumes command of the restored army. That single scene resets the scale. Shao Kahn could be beaten in combat. Shinnok could be separated from his power. The Deadly Alliance could turn on itself. Onaga survives a god detonating at point-blank range. His advantage comes from the Kamidogu Shujinko collected. Together, they make him almost untouchable and move him toward the larger objective of merging the realms. The preserved soldiers give him military reach, while the amulet provides control over pathways between worlds. Several fallen heroes are resurrected as Onaga's servants. Their bodies return under magical domination, turning the defenders defeated by the Deadly Alliance into another layer of the Dragon King's army. Liu Kang exists in a divided state. His spirit remains active, while his corpse has been reanimated elsewhere. Ermac, carrying thousands of souls, helps Liu's spirit free the controlled warriors. The person most responsible for the catastrophe becomes the person capable of stopping it. Shujinko has spent decades absorbing techniques and power from fighters across every realm. He now asks those warriors to lend him their strength, then confronts Onaga with the combined abilities of the people his false quest endangered. Shujinko breaks the Kamidogu. Once the artifacts are shattered, Onaga loses the protection that allowed him to survive overwhelming force. Shujinko defeats him, completing a redemption that does not erase the damage but prevents it from becoming absolute. Nightwolf then binds Onaga's soul to the Netherrealm, forcing the Dragon King away from another immediate resurrection. For once, Mortal Kombat allows the deceived hero to confront the manipulator directly. Shujinko learns the truth, accepts responsibility, and uses the experience gained through the deception against its author. Havik and Hotaru use the crisis to advance the opposed principles of Chaos Realm and Order Realm. Havik can undermine Onaga while remaining dangerous to everyone around him. Hotaru can oppose the Dragon King while enforcing Seidan control. A shared enemy does not erase what each fighter wants afterward. Noob Saibot and Smoke form another disturbing partnership. Noob discovers the cybernetic Smoke and attempts to use him as the basis for obedient Shadow Warriors. Bihan, once warned that his soul was in danger, now treats his brother's closest friend as equipment. Ermac moves in the opposite direction. Created and controlled through collected souls, he develops independence and helps free Onaga's possessed warriors. A being designed as a prison becomes capable of cooperation, because the voices inside him are more than fuel. Deception fills the world with reversals, as the Protector explodes and returns corrupted. The deceived student becomes the decisive champion. The resurrected king takes the body of a servant. Dead heroes become enemies, while a soul construct becomes their liberator. The cost remains enormous because Earthrealm's champions have died and returned. Liu Kang is split between spirit and body. The Kamidogu are broken. Raiden destroyed himself in a blast that failed to kill the target, and when the Thunder God reforms, the energy that brings him back has changed him. Dark Raiden. Raiden returns wearing darker armor, with a colder presence and a willingness to use methods his earlier self rejected. He has not abandoned Earthrealm. He has become more dangerous because protecting it now excuses almost anything. The failed explosion matters psychologically. Raiden surrendered his Elder God position, united with sworn enemies, and sacrificed his own existence. Yet Onaga survived. A protector who believes restraint produced catastrophe may begin treating restraint as the problem. He reanimates Liu Kang's corpse and uses it as an enforcer while Liu's spirit remains separate. The act violates the champion Raiden once guided, converting a fallen friend into a weapon because the body is still useful. That is not the decision of a god at peace with his failure. By Armageddon, Raiden is willing to negotiate with Shao Kahn if an alliance appears useful to Earthrealm. He can oppose Taven, threaten other realms, and accept collateral damage that the earlier Raiden would have considered corruption. This original Dark Raiden should be kept separate from the version created at the end of Mortal Kombat X. Both reflect corrupted protective power, but they emerge from different events in different timelines. The first version becomes another sign that the existing world has lost its balance. Fighters keep returning from death, absorbing power and escalating old rivalries. Delia, an Edenian seer, predicted that this accumulation would eventually destroy every realm. The reanimated Liu Kang shows how far Raiden has moved. Liu's spirit still cares about his friends and seeks reunion with his body. Raiden does not wait for consent. He sees a champion-shaped resource and puts it back into battle. The choice resembles the necromancy he condemned when Quan Chi used fallen heroes. Dark Raiden adopts a wider hostility toward other realms. The old Protector defended Earthrealm because it was his responsibility. The corrupted version treats Earthrealm's safety as a value above every competing life. That logic can justify preemptive violence forever, because another realm will always contain a possible threat. The 2011 timeline later gives Raiden a chance to see this tendency from outside. The Dark Raiden created after Mortal Kombat X intends to attack first, only to be removed by Kronika's Timequake. Young Raiden then confronts repeated visions of himself killing Liu Kang. Both timelines warn that protection becomes domination when a guardian cannot accept uncertainty. Her family built a safeguard. By the time it activates, the safeguard has already been sabotaged. Taven and Dagon. Delia sees a future in which the number and power of the combatants grow beyond control. Their final conflict will tear the realms apart. Her husband, the Edenian god Argus, responds with a plan centered on their sons, Taven and Dagon. They create Blaze, a powerful elemental being whose purpose is to monitor the fighters and eventually draw them into one final confrontation. The brothers are placed in stasis. Taven is guarded by the golden dragon Auron, while Dagon is guarded by Karo. When Blaze sends the signal, both men should awaken and race toward him. Special armor and weapons are left along their routes. Depending on the final conditions, the victorious brother is supposed to use Blaze's power to destroy the combatants or strip them of their abilities. Argus prefers survival through depowering. Delia believes the threat may require annihilation. Their contest postpones that argument until the very moment the realms need certainty. Then, Dagon wakes too early. Caro's loss of contact with Blaze triggers the premature awakening, leaving Dagon centuries ahead of Taven. The waiting son discovers the prophecy, becomes consumed by it, and kills his own parents. He forms the Red Dragon organization and hunts for a way to claim the promised power before his brother can even enter the race. Taven wakes late into a world completely different from the one he left. His parents are dead, his brother has built an empire, and the fighters Delia feared have grown even more powerful. He travels across the realms searching for answers, recovering the weapon and armor prepared for him, while forces connected to Dagon try to stop him. Their dragons suffer as well. Orin guides Taven until he is attacked. Caro is enslaved and used to create portals for the Red Dragon. What was designed as a controlled family trial has become another network of revenge and manipulation. Taven eventually confronts Dagon and defeats him. If the prophecy still worked cleanly, that victory should position Taven to face Blaze and decide the fate of the combatants. Nothing about the plan is clean anymore. Blaze has been corrupted. Both brothers awakened at the wrong times. The instructions are uncertain. Every major fighter has converged on the same location, each believing the power at the top can solve a personal war. Even Dark Raiden and Shao Kahn are willing to make temporary deals around the outcome. Dagon's early awakening gives him time to create systems that outlive the mistake. The Red Dragon operates as a secret organization connected to genetic experiments, portals, and manipulation. Movado and Shu Hao become parts of a network that contrasts with Kano's Black Dragon while sharing the same appetite for hidden leverage. Argus and Delia fail because they do not agree on the objective. Are the fighters people who should be rescued from their own power or weapons that must be destroyed? Blaze carries both possibilities toward the summit without a reliable judge. Taven can win his quest and still lack certainty about which outcome his parents intended. The prophecy causes people to behave in ways that make it come true. Dagon murders to secure his place while factions converge to claim Blaze. Dark Raiden bargains with enemies because he believes the final power must not fall outside Earthrealm. Knowledge of Armageddon accelerates the race toward it. Taven reaches the Pyramid of Argus, but the fighter who ultimately claims Blaze's power is not one of Delia's sons. Mortal Kombat, Armageddon. The Pyramid of Argus rises from the ground as fighters from every realm charge toward it. Heroes, villains, gods, cyborgs, sorcerers, and resurrected warriors collide on its steps. Blaze waits at the summit, carrying enough power to decide the future of all of them. Armageddon's opening presents the entire original era as one physical pileup. Old rivalries continue during the apocalypse, with Scorpion fighting Sub-Zero, Kenshi battling Shang Tsung, and Quan Chi turning on allies. Nobody can stop climbing long enough to recognize that the contest itself is the disaster Delia predicted. Taven's playable journey reaches Blaze, and his arcade ending offers one possible resolution. Yet the next game establishes that this is not the history that carries forward. Shao Kahn defeats Blaze. The Emperor, who repeatedly failed to merge Earthrealm, now absorbs the Elemental's power and becomes stronger than ever. By the end of the battle, nearly every other combatant is dead. Raiden is the last meaningful opponent standing. Their final confrontation takes place on the ruined pyramid. Shao Kahn overwhelms him, cracking Raiden's amulet as he prepares the killing blow. At that moment, Raiden finally accepts that the timeline cannot be saved from the present. He sends a message into the past. The words travel through the damaged amulet to his earlier self during the 10th Mortal Kombat tournament. He must win. Raiden does not explain who he is. He does not send a full account of Armageddon or a list of decisions to change. The message carries broken visions and one command that can be interpreted in several disastrous ways. Shao Kahn brings the hammer down. The original timeline ends with its strongest surviving conqueror standing above a defeated god. This is the first great continuity break, but it is not a reboot disconnected from everything before it. The original history causes the next one. Quan Chi's schemes, Liu Kang's victories, Onaga's return, Dark Raiden and Blaze all still happen because they produce the warning that changes the past. The message arrives before Liu Kang has defeated Shang Tsung on the island. Past Raiden sees fragments of a future he cannot understand and notices new cracks spreading across his amulet whenever events move toward the same ending. Who dies on the pyramid is less important than the configuration confirmed by the reboot. Shao Kahn has Blaze's power. Raiden remains alive long enough to send the message. Everyone else has failed to prevent the Emperor reaching the summit. That resolves the conflict between Armageddon's playable conclusion and Mortal Kombat 20 Tavin's campaign and personal battles happened, although his ending did not become the history that continued. The sequel selects Shao Kahn's victory as the outcome of the larger war. The warning is limited by the seconds available. Raiden is injured, his amulet is breaking, and Shao Kahn is approaching. A detailed explanation may be impossible. The two-word message is enough to alter history and too vague to guide it safely. This gives Mortal Kombat a reboot that remains accountable to the discarded continuity. The old heroes are gone, but their deaths cause Raiden's desperation. The new era later moves further away, yet it grows from Liu defeating the Keeper created by this warning. He has one clue: centuries of consequences and no idea who must win. Raiden's message. During the first tournament, Raiden receives images of Armageddon and hears his future self say he must win. The vision shows Shao Kahn, the pyramid, and a world ending in violence, but it does not reveal the logic connecting them. Raiden assumes the message concerns a champion. Perhaps Liu Kang must defeat Shang Tsung. Perhaps Kung Lao must replace Liu. Perhaps some result in Outworld will prevent Shao Kahn from reaching Blaze. Each time Raiden changes history without solving the problem, another crack appears in his amulet. The object becomes a visual scorecard for a future getting closer despite different choices. That is the engine of Mortal Kombat 2011. We are not watching the first 3 games happen again by coincidence. We are watching a frightened god interfere with familiar events using incomplete information. Some people survive moments that once killed them, others die decades earlier. The destination remains Armageddon until Raiden understands that winning has never meant what he assumed. Raiden initially treats the future like a puzzle, with one corrected move. The cracked amulet teaches him otherwise. A decision can change who becomes cybernetic, who wins a fight, and who reaches the next invasion while preserving the structure underneath. His visions arrive without context. Seeing Liu Kang and Shao Kahn in conflict does not reveal which victory causes Armageddon. Seeing allies dead does not explain whether saving one transfers danger to another. Future Raiden knows the answer at the final moment, while past Raiden receives only the conclusion. The reboot tests something beyond foreknowledge. Would knowing a disaster is coming make a protector wiser, or simply more controlling? Raiden interrupts choices because he has seen their worst possible result. Every failed correction increases the pressure to interfere more aggressively. The first test begins on Shang Tsung's island. Mortal Kombat 2011, the first tournament. Raiden recognizes the tournament, Goro's winning streak, and Liu Kang's role. He also sees moments from the original future, including Scorpion killing Bi-Han. This time, he tries to intervene. He asks Scorpion to spare Sub-Zero and promises to request the Elder God's help in restoring the Shirai Ryu. Scorpion considers it. Quan Chi then shows him a vision of the massacre, carefully presenting Bi-Han as the killer. Rage overwhelms the agreement, and Scorpion burns Sub-Zero alive. "I have avenged my family and clan," he declares. Quan Chi has again turned grief into recruitment. The outcome creates Noob Saibot just as before. Raiden changed the conversation and preserved the death. Other differences begin around the Lin Kuei. Cyrax is still human on the island and has doubts about the Cyber Initiative. Raiden encourages those doubts, hoping a changed fighter might redirect future. Sector embraces the plan more fully. The clan's internal split begins earlier in our view, but it does not disappear. Johnny Cage learns the danger is real and moves beyond treating the tournament like a publicity stunt. Sonya searches for Jax, who is now held on the island rather than remaining outside the central conflict. Liu Kang develops a relationship with Kitana sooner, giving her rebellion against Shao Kahn a more immediate connection to Earthrealm. The broad result remains familiar. Liu Kang defeats Goro and Shang Tsung before the island collapses around Earthrealm's 10th tournament victory. Raiden looks at the amulet and watches another crack spread across it. This is the first proof that he must win cannot simply mean Liu Kang winning the same battles more decisively. The victory is real, yet it still points toward Armageddon. Shao Kahn threatens Shang Tsung for the failure. The Sorcerer offers the Outworld rematch, and the attack on the Wuxi Academy again forces Earthrealm's champions to respond. Raiden enters the second campaign looking for a different champion and begins making larger changes. The island establishes relationships earlier than the original games developed them. Johnny and Sonya begin the friction that becomes a marriage, divorce, and Cassie. Liu and Kitana connect before she has fully broken from Outworld. Their future families and losses grow directly from the first tournament. Quan Chi operates openly beside Shang Tsung, showing Raiden pieces of the alliance that once emerged later. Knowing the Sorcerer is dangerous does not give Raiden proof of every hidden action. Scorpion still accepts the manufactured vision because a promise about future restoration cannot compete with grief shown as immediate evidence. Cyrex's doubts create one successful intervention. Raiden gives him a reason to resist the Lin Kuei while he remains human. The change feels small beside Lu's victory, yet it begins a thread that helps Earthrealm oppose Sector's mechanized faction. The amulet cracking after victory is brutal because every visible objective was achieved. Goro and Shang lose while Earthrealm survives, yet the future object says success has still failed. The more he interferes, the more expensive each guess becomes. Mortal Kombat 2011. Outworld. Raiden starts to suspect Kung Lao may be the person named in the warning. Kung Lao has the bloodline of the great Kung Lao, the skill to defeat Outworld's champions, and a frustration that Liu Kang receives every decisive opportunity. That possibility grows when Kung Lao defeats Shang Tsung and Quan Chi together, then overcomes Kintaro. For a moment, Raiden seems to have discovered an alternate route through history. Earthrealm has another champion capable of breaking Shao Kahn's power. Shao Kahn walks up behind Kung Lao and snaps his neck. The death is sudden because the Emperor does not respect the structure of a heroic duel. Kung Lao is celebrating, Liu Kang is watching, and Raiden has once again mistaken potential for destiny. Liu attacks in fury and defeats Shao Kahn, leaving the same champion standing over the same Emperor through a different trail of bodies. The altered timeline also changes the Cyber Initiative. In the original history, Smoke is captured and converted while Kuai Liang escapes. Here, Raiden prevents Smoke's capture, so the Lin Kuei takes Sub-Zero instead. Kuai Liang becomes Cyber Sub-Zero, a mechanized assassin forced to serve the clan. Earthrealm's defenders eventually restore his free will and gain a powerful ally, but Raiden's successful rescue of one man transfers the violation to another. The future accepts the change while redistributing its cost. Kitana learns the truth about Edenia and Mileena again. Jade chooses loyalty to Kitana over obedience to Shao Kahn. Baraka and the Tarkatans remain instruments of the Empire. The familiar pieces move in altered order while the larger conflict continues toward invasion. After Liu defeats Shao Kahn, Quan Chi heals the Emperor and explains the Sindel loophole. Sindel can be resurrected in Earthrealm, opening the barrier and allowing a merger without the 10 tournament victories. Raiden has changed fighters, victories, and conversions. Shao Kahn still reaches the same loophole. Kuai Liang's conversion changes more than the identity inside the armor. Smoke remains human and fights beside Earthrealm. Cyber Sub-Zero uses freezing abilities through machinery while carrying the horror of forced obedience. Raiden has saved the friend and sacrificed the brother without intending either exchange. Kung Lao's death carries a similar transfer. Raiden encourages him because the warning may identify a new champion. Kung Lao receives the chance he wanted, proves he belongs at the highest level, and dies when that validation appears complete. Liu Kang's anger begins separating him from Raiden. From Lu's perspective, the Thunder God asks everyone to trust visions that keep changing while friends die. Raiden sees a future only he can prevent. Both responses make sense, which is why their eventual fight cannot be reduced to one person suddenly behaving irrationally. The amulet suffers another crack, and Earthrealm enters the phase where Raiden's guesses become fatal. Mortal Kombat 2011. The Invasion. Shao Kahn crosses into Earthrealm behind the resurrected Sindel and begins stealing souls. Raiden seeks guidance from the Elder Gods, but they refuse to act while the exact rules of merger remain unresolved. Their realm is collapsing under an invasion, and the cosmic authorities respond like lawyers waiting for the final clause. Raiden turns to Quan Chi for information. That decision reveals one of the reboot's cruelest changes. Quan Chi has collected the souls of fighters who died during the conflict and converted them into revenants serving the Nether Realm. The future defenders of Earthrealm are being assembled as Shinnok's next army. Noob Saibot helps create a Soul Nado intended to consume Earthrealm souls. Cyber Sub-Zero and Nightwolf stop the process, and Nightwolf destroys Noob by pulling him into the energy. The victory does not hold for long. Sindel enters the Defender's Sanctuary after receiving an enormous increase in power from Shang Tsung's stolen soul. She attacks almost alone, killing Cyber Sub-Zero, Smoke, Jade, Stryker, and Cabal. Jax has his arms torn away and dies. Kitana is fatally wounded by the mother she tried to save. Nightwolf finally sacrifices himself to destroy Sindel. Raiden and Liu Kang return to a room filled with the people their changes were supposed to protect. Kitana dies in Liu's arms. The amulet is nearly shattered, and Raiden still cannot interpret the warning. He concludes that Liu Kang must defeat Shao Kahn one more time. Liu refuses to follow another plan from a god whose interventions have produced a massacre. Their argument becomes a fight. Raiden releases lightning to stop Liu's fire and accidentally sends the energy back through him. Liu Kang burns. Raiden holds the dying champion and realizes he has recreated the central loss of the original timeline with his own hands. Quan Chi and Shang Tsung murdered Liu before. This time, his protector does it while trying to save him. Shao Kahn enters Earthrealm and beats Raiden down. The image finally matches the future vision. The Emperor stands over the Thunder God, apparently victorious. And that is the answer. He must win, means Shao Kahn must be allowed to complete his illegal merger. Only then will he violate the Elder God's rules openly enough to force their intervention. Raiden stops resisting and lets the Emperor believe he has won. The Elder Gods pour their power into Raiden. He destroys Shao Kahn and ends the invasion. The Elder Gods' intervention answers the rule and exposes its weakness. They possess enough power to destroy Shao Kahn once the violation is undeniable. They allow the invasion, mass death, and merger attempt to continue until that legal threshold is crossed. Raiden saves Earthrealm by presenting its suffering in the only form the gods will recognize. Shao Kahn's destruction leaves a vacuum. Outworld does not become peaceful because the Emperor is gone. Mileena, Kotal, and other factions compete for the throne. The Revenants give Quan Chi an army built from Earthrealm's best fighters. Shinnok gains the chance the original timeline denied him. Raiden's victory is strategically correct and personally devastating. He interprets the message, follows the rule, and survives. He also lives with the knowledge that his lightning killed Liu Kang. That guilt shapes his later corruption through the Jinsei. Earthrealm survives, but the victory is horrifying. Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Kitana, Smoke, Nightwolf, Jax, Stryker, Cabal, and Cyber Sub-Zero are dead or claimed as revenants. Shinnok and Quan Chi observe the result with satisfaction because Raiden has removed many of the fighters who defeated them in the original history. Raiden prevents Armageddon by allowing a different catastrophe. The reboot continues, and its next war begins almost immediately. Mortal Kombat X, the Netherrealm War. With Shao Kahn gone and Earthrealm's defenders depleted, Shinnok launches his attack. Quan Chi commands revenants wearing the faces of the heroes who just died. Liu Kang and Kitana now rule among the Netherrealm forces, directing their anger at Raiden. Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade become the center of the defense. During the battle, Johnny manifests a green energy inherited through an ancient warrior bloodline. The power is especially effective against gods, allowing him to protect Sonya and resist Shinnok when ordinary strength would fail. Raiden traps Shinnok inside his own amulet. The fallen Elder God is contained, but Quan Chi escapes with much of the Revenant army. Johnny, Sonya, and Kenshi continue the fight until Raiden captures Quan Chi and uses his magic to restore several fallen warriors to human life. Johnny, Sonya, and Jax return fully, while Scorpion is restored as Hanzo Hasashi. Kuai Liang returns from his cybernetic death in human form. Other revenants, including Liu Kang, Kitana, Kung Lao, and Jade, remain in the Netherrealm because the restoration is interrupted. 25 years pass. Johnny and Sonya marry, have Cassie Cage, and later separate under the pressure of Sonya's devotion to duty. Kenshi has a son, Takeda, whose mother is murdered by the Red Dragon. Jax struggles with the trauma of his death and years as a revenant while raising Jackie Briggs. Kung Jin, a relative of Kung Lao, finds a place among the Shaolin and Special Forces. These four become the Combat Kids, a new unit trained to defend Earthrealm without simply copying the people before them. Cassie combines Johnny's humor, Sonya's discipline, and the same green power that hurt Shinnok. Jackie carries the legacy Jax fears will destroy her. Takeda trains under Scorpion. Kung Jin wants recognition without living as an extension of Kung Lao. Meanwhile, Hanzo rebuilds the Shirai Ryu and makes peace with Kuai Liang. Sub-Zero exposes Quan Chi's role in their feud, and the two clan leaders finally reject the revenge cycle that controlled them. The restored fighters carry consequences that resurrection does not remove. Jax has his life back and still remembers serving Quan Chi. Hanzo has his humanity back and still has to rebuild a clan destroyed because he believed a lie. Kuai Liang has his body back and still cannot recover Bihan. Johnny and Sonya's relationship shows another cost. They help save the realm, build a family, and discover that shared heroism does not guarantee a stable marriage. Cassie inherits their abilities and expectations while learning to command people who knew both parents before she existed. Takeda's training under Scorpion turns legacy into repair. Hanzo lost a son in clan, then becomes a mentor capable of giving Kenshi's son a community. Jackie's choice is more difficult for Jax because her competence pulls her toward the life that traumatized him. The Combat Kids extend the older fighters instead of replacing them. Their first mission is measured against legends, but their final victory belongs to a power and team structure the original roster did not have. Peace arrives just as Outworld's throne breaks into civil war. and a former ally carries Shinnok's amulet straight toward Quan Chi. Mortal Kombat X, The Outworld Civil War. After Shao Kahn's death, Mileena claims Outworld's throne. Her connection to the Emperor gives her legitimacy among loyalists, but Kotal Khan leads a rebellion and removes her. The Empire divides between Mileena's supporters and Kotal's government. Kotal is not a gentle ruler. He believes order requires strength and is willing to sacrifice allies when Outworld's survival is threatened. He is, however, more open to cooperation with Earthrealm than Shao Kahn ever was. That fragile alliance depends on both sides believing the other will respect boundaries. The Kombat Kids enter Outworld during the hunt for Mileena and Shinnok's amulet. Their mission becomes tangled with the Civil War, Tarkatan loyalties, and Devora, a Khitan warrior who serves Kotal while secretly answering Quan Chi. Mileena possesses the amulet and uses it as a claim to power. Devora captures her, and Kotal orders the former Empress executed. Devora performs the killing herself, releasing insects into Mileena's mouth and ending one of Shao Kahn's most persistent bloodlines. Then, she steals the amulet. Kotal realizes Earthrealm's presence, and Shinnok's artifact could expose Outworld to another war. His fear turns the Alliance hostile. The Kombat Kids are imprisoned, escape, and continue the chase while Devora carries the amulet toward the one person who can use it to release Shinnok. Scorpion creates the final complication. Hanzo has learned that Quan Chi destroyed his clan, murdered his family, and manipulated his revenge against Bi-Han. The Special Forces have captured the sorcerer and need him alive long enough to restore the remaining revenants. Hanzo cannot wait. He attacks the facility and reaches Quan Chi. Sonya's forces attempt to stop the execution because Liu Kang, Kitana, and the others may lose their only route back. Hanzo cuts off Quan Chi's head. At almost the same instant, Devora presents Shinnok's amulet. Quan Chi completes the spell with his final words, and the fallen Elder God emerges from the artifact. Kotal's response reveals the fragility of trust. He has reason to fear the amulet, Mileena, and a Special Forces unit moving through his civil war. He also acts quickly enough to turn potential allies into prisoners. The habits needed to survive Outworld politics work against cooperation. Devora thrives inside that uncertainty. She presents herself as Kotal's loyal enforcer, executes Mileena on his command, and completes Quan Chi's plan during the same operation. Her power comes from biology and surprise, while her influence comes from serving one ruler long enough to betray him for another. Hanzo's attack is the emotional center because the practical argument for patience is overwhelming. Keeping Quan Chi alive might restore Liu Kang, Kitana, and Kung Lao. Hanzo knows this. He rebuilt his clan and made peace with Sub-Zero. Revenge still takes control when the person who murdered his family is finally within reach. Scorpion receives the revenge he has wanted for decades. It costs Earthrealm its best chance to recover its champions and frees the enemy those champions died fighting. Mortal Kombat X. Shinnok's return. Shinnok attacks the Sky Temple and captures Raiden. Using the Jinsei, Earthrealm's life force, he transforms into corrupted Shinnok. The contamination spreads through the realm, turning its own spiritual energy into a weapon against it. This is where the Kombat Kids have to justify the entire 25-year jump. Their parents are injured, captured, or divided. The older generation cannot simply repeat its last victory. Cassie, Jackie, Takeda, and Kung Jin reach the temple together, but Cassie becomes the decisive fighter. Her green energy activates against Shinnok just as Johnny's did. She defeats the corrupted Elder God and helps restore the Jinsei. Earthrealm survives because a child born after the reboot carries a power the original timeline never used this way. That seems like proof Raiden's altered history created something valuable. The next generation can win. Scorpion has made peace with Sub-Zero, and Outworld has a ruler capable of diplomacy. Shinnok is defeated again. Then Raiden purifies the Jinsei by drawing its corruption into himself. He emerges as Dark Raiden, echoing the Protect created after the Deception explosion in the original timeline. This Raiden has reached the same dangerous idea through a different route. Earthrealm can be safe only if its enemies fear what he will do first. He enters the Netherrealm, where Revenant Liu Kang and Kitana now rule after Shinnok's fall. Raiden throws Shinnok's severed head before them and promises that Earthrealm will no longer wait for attacks. The warning is unmistakable. A god who spent the last game trying to repair the past now intends to dominate the future? Before Dark Raiden can begin that campaign, time freezes around him. A woman steps into the Netherrealm and approaches Shinnok's remains. Her name is Kronika. She is Shinnok's mother, an ancient titan and the keeper of time. According to her, Raiden has disrupted a balance she has been enforcing across repeated histories. Cassie's victory mirrors Johnny's earlier defense of Sonya while giving the power a new level of proof. The green energy is connected to ancestors capable of opposing gods. Against corrupted Shinnok, that inheritance lets a young commander reach a level her ordinary experience would never predict. Jakui, Takeda, and Kung Jin remain essential because getting Cassie to the final fight requires a unit. Mortal Kombat still needs one champion at the decisive moment, but that champion no longer acts alone. Raiden's corruption creates an uncomfortable comparison with Shinnok. He defeats the fallen god, absorbs poison, divine energy, and emerges believing fear will protect his realm. His threat gives Liu Kang another reason to hate him. From Raiden's perspective, intimidation may prevent an invasion. From Liu's, the god who killed him has entered his realm carrying a severed head. The reboot was never the first time the timeline changed. Kronika's Timequake. Kronika operates from a structure beyond ordinary history. Her hourglass can erase, restart, and reshape a timeline, while the crown created by Shang Tsung allows a user to control its immense temporal energy safely. She presents herself as a keeper of balance between Shinnok's darkness and Cetrian's virtue. In practice, that balance means arranging histories around the conflict she wants and resetting them when somebody escapes the design. Raiden is the recurring problem. Across timeline after timeline, he clashes with Liu Kang. Sometimes Liu dies, while other cycles shift their roles. Kronika claims their conflict has repeated because their combined potential threatens her control. Shinnok's defeat gives her the justification for another reset. She recruits Geras, an artificial immortal bound to her service, and Cetrian, the elder god who secretly remains loyal to her mother. She promises Shao Kahn his empire, Revenant Liu Kang revenge against Raiden, and frost control of the Lin Kuei. Then Kronika creates a timequake. Past versions of fighters and locations are pulled into the present. Shao Kahn, young Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Kitana, Jade, Raiden, Johnny, Sonya, Jax, Kano, Scorpion, and others arrive from the period around Mortal Kombat 2011's Outworld tournament. They encounter older selves, dead friends, and futures they never agreed to create. Dark Raiden disappears, because two versions of a god cannot occupy the same moment in the same way. The younger Raiden remains, confronted by evidence of where his protective certainty leads. The timequake turns exposition into personal collision. Johnny sees the arrogant younger man Sonya once tolerated. Sonya watches a version of herself who has not yet built their family. Jax faces the younger body he lost and the trauma his younger self cannot imagine. Past Liu Kang meets a revenant version ruling the Nether Realm. Kronika's power exceeds anything Raiden used during the reboot. He sent one warning backward and altered a chain of events. She has been restarting the board itself. Geras makes Kronika's control tangible. He can be torn apart, drowned, or shattered, and still rebuild himself because she designed him as a fixed point serving her plan. His immortality lacks the freedom Onaga wanted. Geras survives everything and remains bound to the person who decides why he exists. Cetrian reveals the hypocrisy beneath balance. As an elder god associated with virtue and nature, she should oppose Kronika's erasure of lives. Her loyalty to her mother takes priority. She is willing to sacrifice herself so Kronika can absorb her power, proving that a virtuous title cannot protect somebody from serving a destructive system. Kronika also needs ordinary resentment. She cannot recruit Jax, Frost, or Revenant Liu Kang through a lecture about temporal architecture. She offers each a corrected private life. Her cosmic plan advances through personal wounds, which makes her a larger version of Quan Chi and Damashi. The scale changes while the method remains intimate. The question shifts. If the Keeper of Time has already revised history repeatedly, is there any original sequence left to recover, or only the latest arrangement she permitted? The past returns. The returned fighters do more than double the roster. They force everybody to see which parts of their identity came from choice and which came from circumstance. Young Johnny Cage initially treats the future like proof of success. He sees wealth, experience, and a family. Older Johnny sees the insecurity beneath the performance because he remembers being that man. Their conflict allows him to measure growth that no speech from Sonya could have forced him to recognize. Sonya's story turns tragic. The present-day general sacrifices herself during the opening assault on the Netherrealm, leaving Cassie to command while a younger Sonya enters the future before becoming a mother. Cassie can speak to her, but cannot replace the woman she lost. Time travel puts the same face in front of her without restoring the same relationship. Jax is vulnerable to Kronika's promise. Years of physical damage, revenant trauma, and fear for Jackie make a redesigned history feel merciful. Kronika offers a world where he never loses his arms, and his daughter never inherits his war. His temporary alliance with her grows from exhaustion rather than simple betrayal. Kitana uses the collision more effectively. She unites the Shokan and Tarkatans against Shao Kahn, defeats the Emperor, and takes command of Outworld as Kitana Khan. The princess who spent multiple timelines reacting to her father's empire finally rules the realm herself. Jade also confronts Kotal over his treatment of Tarkatans, proving loyalty does not require approving every decision. Kotal is badly injured by Shao Kahn, leaving Kitana to build the coalition that his reign could not hold. Noob Saibot returns as the corrupted Bihan, giving Kuai Liang another encounter with the brother he hoped to redeem. Frost accepts Kronika's promise of recognition and converts the Lin Kuei into cybernetic soldiers serving the new timeline. Sub-Zero and Hanzo Hasashi fight together to stop her, completing the alliance Quan Chi spent 2 histories preventing. Kronika gathers power, while the heroes gather people. That difference becomes decisive because her followers are promised private corrections, while the defenders choose relationships that can survive an imperfect history. Past and present, Kano take a simpler view of the collision. Kano recognizes that cooperating with himself creates a business partner whose betrayal he can predict because it is his own. Sonya defeats the arrangement by exploiting that same continuity between them. The two Jakui raise a more painful possibility around Jax. Present Jakui understands that a timeline where Jax never suffers may also be one where she is never born. Kronika's promise of healing can erase the person he wants to protect. The perfect correction contains a loss he has avoided naming. Kitana's coalition provides the positive alternative. She does not offer Shokan and Tarkatans a world where their injuries never happen. She gives them power in the world that exists and asks them to defeat the ruler who exploited their division. Her title as Khan comes from building consent across groups Shao treated as weapons. Scorpion is about to make the most important choice of his life, and he will not live to see its full result. Scorpion's last mission. Hanzo Hasashi travels with Kuai Liang to recruit Karen, a ferryman able to move their forces toward Kronika's keep. The mission takes him back through territory connected to the Netherrealm and into contact with his younger self, the Scorpion pulled from the past. Young Scorpion still lives inside the revenge cycle. He distrusts Sub-Zero, follows Rage, and sees Hanzo's cooperation as weakness. The older man knows exactly why. He remembers believing Quan Chi, killing Bihan, and allowing grief to define every decision. Hanzo does not defeat that version of himself with a lecture. He shows him the life built after revenge. The Shirai Ryu exist again, Takeda carries their training, and peace with Sub-Zero has ended a feud that served their enemies for generations. Devora attacks before the reconciliation is complete. She poisons Hanzo, leaving him dying in the arms of his younger self. The obvious result would be another revenge mission. Young Scorpion initially moves toward it, then carries Hanzo's message to Raiden instead. He asks the god to trust him and helps unite the fleets against Kronika. That decision finally breaks Quan Chi's oldest manipulation. Scorpion still feels the anger. He simply refuses to let the person who caused it decide his next action. Raiden struggles with the same pattern on a cosmic scale. Kronika arranges another confrontation between him and Liu Kang. He sees visions of their repeated fights across earlier timelines and recognizes the trap. Karen matters because access to Kronika's keep depends on somebody outside the central god war. His fleet can cross the Sea of Blood, turning a ferryman into the logistical key for a battle between temporal powers. Mortal Kombat repeatedly gives artifacts and gods enormous strength, then makes the route toward them depend on a person the ruler overlooked. Hanzo's death does not complete Devora's pattern of assassination. She killed Melina and now kills Scorpion, but young Scorpion's response denies her the larger effect. She can end a life. She cannot force the survivor to become the next instrument of revenge. Raiden learns from that choice immediately. The younger Scorpion arrives carrying a message from a man Raiden trusted, and Raiden nearly attacks him because the face belongs to an old enemy. Choosing to listen becomes the first step toward recognizing Kronika's repeated design around Liu Kang. This time he chooses Union. Fire God Liu Kang. Kronika sends Revenant Liu Kang to attack Raiden and drain the younger Liu's soul. The strategy is designed to force Raiden into the familiar role of killer. Every previous version ends with their power divided and their relationship destroyed. Raiden stops following the script. He merges his divine essence with Liu Kang, combining the Thunder God's power, the champion's soul, and both men's memories into fire, God Liu Kang. The fighter Raiden spent generations guiding becomes the protector capable of replacing him. The transformation works because it resolves the conflict Kronika kept repeating. Raiden does not win by overpowering Liu. Liu does not win by rejecting Raiden. Both surrender part of the identity that made the rivalry possible. Fire. God Liu Kang enters Kronika's keep as battles rage across the fleet. Cetrion sacrifices herself so Kronika can absorb her power. Garrus continues returning after defeat until Raiden anchors him in the Sea of Blood. The Keeper of Time begins reversing history around the fighters, erasing allies from the battlefield as she rewinds the age. Liu reaches the hourglass beyond the beginning of the current timeline. He defeats Kronika, something none of her planned cycles prepared to survive. By the end, the universe has been reduced to a blank temporal canvas. Liu Kang stands beside a mortal Raiden, who has surrendered godhood through the merger. They prepare to create a new era. This appears to answer the governing question. A trustworthy champion controls the hourglass. Liu remembers the failures of Shao Kahn, Raiden, and Kronika. Who could be safer than the hero who repeatedly died protecting Earthrealm? There is one problem. Rebuilding time requires Kronika's crown, and Liu destroyed it during the final battle. The merger also settles Raiden's changing role. He spent the original timeline as Divine Mentor, the reboot as Desperate Editor, and the end of Mortal Kombat X as a corrupted threat. Giving his essence to Liu Kang is the first solution that does not require Raiden to remain in control afterward. Liu brings something Kronika underestimates. He remembers being the chosen champion, the angry revenant, and the person repeatedly killed by Raiden. Fire. God Liu Kang contains contradictory versions without allowing one to erase the others. His identity becomes a union of histories before the franchise reveals a multiverse built on the same principle. When mortal Raiden stands beside him at the dawn of time, their hierarchy has reversed without humiliation. Raiden trusts the student to shape the future. Liu treats him as an advisor, rather than a failed relic. That relationship gives the new timeline a healthier foundation than Kronika's obedience-based family. Shang Tsung knows how to recover it. Mortal Kombat, let us such. Solitary life. Aftermath. As Liu Kang begins shaping history, Shang Tsung, Fujin, and Nightwolf emerge from a temporal void. Shang explains that the hourglass cannot be operated safely without the crown he designed for Kronika. If Liu continues, the uncontrolled energy could destroy the future he is trying to build. The crown existed in the past. Somebody has to travel back into Mortal Kombat 11's events, recover it before Cetrion takes it, and deliver it to Liu beyond Kronika's defeat. Trusting Shang Tsung with any part of creation is obviously dangerous. Liu allows the mission because he already remembers it as part of the history that led him here. That detail matters later. Fire. God Liu Kang is not blindly fooled. He is preserving the chain that gives him a chance against the sorcerer. Shang, Fujin, and Nightwolf return to the period of Kronika's campaign and alter events around the heroes. They free Sindel, whose power is needed to breach Kronika's defenses. The restoration also activates Aftermath's controversial new account of her past. This Sindel says she never loved Jared and never died to protect Earthrealm. She considered the Edenian king weak, chose Shao Kahn willingly, and was murdered by Quan Chi because her influence threatened his plans. It is a direct reversal of the tragedy driving Mortal Kombat 3 and 2011. Whether that history was always true inside the reboot or altered by later interference, the game treats it as Sindel's reality. Once restored, she reunites with Shao Kahn and betrays the people who helped revive her. The Emperor and Empress become a devastating pair. They defeat Kitana's coalition, retake command, and slaughter their way toward Kronika's keep. Sindel turns on her daughter without brainwashing. Shao Kahn cripples Liu Kang's revenant body. Their reunion tears apart the alliances that won the original campaign. Shang Tsung keeps moving behind them. He gains the crown and uses it to absorb souls from increasingly powerful targets. Fujin and Nightwolf realize the betrayal, but by then Shang has the artifact amplifying every ability that made him dangerous. At Kronika's keep, Shao Kahn and Sindel expect a shared empire. Shang Tsung consumes both of them. Kronika attempts to control the situation and is consumed as well. The sorcerer who once served Shao Kahn now carries the souls and power of the Emperor, Sindel, and the Keeper of Time. He controls the crown and stands before the hourglass. For the first time, Shang Tsung is not manipulating somebody else's ruler. He is capable of becoming the ruler of history himself. Fujin's role makes the betrayal hurt. He approaches mortals with warmth, listens more readily than Raiden, and gives Shang Tsung a genuine opportunity to cooperate. Shang uses that trust as cover without proving the trust itself foolish. Fujin's compassion helps the mission succeed. The failure is assuming a successful shared mission changed Shang's final objective. Nightwolf also accepts enormous risk. His history includes the sacrifice that destroyed Sindel during the reboot invasion. Now he helps restore her because the crown mission requires it. Aftermath turns a former solution into the root that empowers the same enemy again. Shang's climb through absorbed souls follows the logic established since the first game. Every victim gives him more than strength. He gains access to power associated with their identity. The crown lets that accumulation reach Titan scale, converting centuries of service and theft into one bid for the hourglass. Fire God Liu Kang arrives to stop him. The final choice produces two different endings, and Mortal Kombat 1 later reveals that the choice did something far stranger than select one canon result: the battle for the hourglass. If Liu Kang wins, he strips Shang Tsung's stolen power away, erases the sorcerer, and takes control of the hourglass. He then visits the great Kung Lao, apparently ready to guide Earthrealm's history from a much earlier point. If Shang Tsung wins, he absorbs Liu Kang, claims the hourglass, and builds a reality ruled by himself. Dark Raiden and Fujin serve him while his armies prepare to conquer Order Realm and Chaos Realm. At the end of Aftermath, these outcomes appear mutually exclusive. A player chooses the final fighter, watches one victory, and assumes the other belongs with non-canon arcade endings. Mortal Kombat 1 reveals that both survived. The battle released enough temporal power to fracture history. Every participant capable of taking the hourglass could create or become the guardian of another branch. Liu Kang establishes his new era. The victorious Shang Tsung exists as a Titan in a separate timeline. Other Titans rise from other outcomes, producing a multiverse filled with histories governed by different keepers. This changes the meaning of every previous reboot. Raiden's message created one altered timeline from the original future. Kronika had repeatedly reset histories around her preferred balance. Aftermath breaks the assumption that only one rewritten line remains active after the change. Liu Kang wins his battle and still does not eliminate Shang Tsung's victory. The sorcerer wins elsewhere and still cannot erase Liu's new era. Control of one hourglass does not grant control of every possible history. That limitation is easy to miss because Liu Kang's ending initially looks so complete. He has defeated Kronika, outplayed Shang Tsung, and gained the authority to rebuild the lives of people he loves. Raiden is no longer trapped in a cycle of killing him. Kitana can be protected. Shao Kahn and Quan Chi can be reduced before their empires form. Liu creates a new timeline designed around that belief. He gives villains quieter lives and removes the systems that elevated them. He also surrenders his role as Keeper of Time to Geras, choosing to serve Earthrealm as its protector rather than govern every second from the hourglass. For an age, the new era works. Then, a mysterious benefactor begins whispering to the people Liu Kang tried to neutralize. The new Shang Tsung receives knowledge he could never have discovered alone. General Shao sees a route toward rebellion. Bi-Han imagines the Lin Kuei ruling instead of serving. The split also changes how endings function. Older arcade endings usually represent possibilities until a sequel selects the outcome it needs. Aftermath's endings generate realities precisely because temporal power makes both possibilities sustainable. The franchise turns an old storytelling ambiguity into a mechanic inside the universe. That does not mean every imaginable result automatically created a full Titan. Mortal Kombat 1 confirms multiple keepers and timelines connected to the final battle, while leaving their exact number and origins open. The pyramid sequence exaggerates the possibilities deliberately without giving each one equal historical weight. Liu Kang's decision to place Geras over the hourglass adds a safeguard Kronika never accepted. Geras remembers servitude under a keeper and can challenge Liu when evidence contradicts his assumptions. Dividing protection from timekeeping reduces the chance that one mistake becomes universal law. The source calls himself Damashi, a name already associated with one of the longest deceptions in Mortal Kombat history: Liu Kang's new era. Liu Kang builds his timeline by changing opportunity rather than simply deleting every enemy. Shang Tsung is born without wealth, status, or recognized magic. Quan Chi lives a difficult life in the mines. Shao never becomes Khan, Raiden is mortal, and the Lin Kuei serve Earthrealm instead of pursuing cybernetic control. Kitana and Mileena grow up as genuine sisters under Empress Sindel. Jarrett is dead, but his family rules Outworld without Shao Kahn's conquest. Mileena is the older heir rather than a clone created to replace Kitana. Tarkatans are no longer a separate conquering species. Tarkat is now a disease that transforms its victims, including Mileena and Baraka. Kuai Liang becomes Scorpion. Bi-Han remains Sub-Zero and leads the Lin Kuei. Their adopted brother Thomas is Smoke. Hanzo Hasashi is not the adult Spectre driving the clan war, which allows Liu Kang to build a different relationship around the same symbols. Geras takes responsibility for the hourglass, while Liu Kang returns to the role of Earthrealm's protector. Liu has reduced himself from Keeper of Time to a demigod because he does not want to control every life directly. For eons, the design remains stable. That is the longest period of peace any major timeline controller achieves. Liu's changes reveal what he believes punishment should accomplish. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi are given lives without the institutions that once made them tyrants. They are not tortured eternally for crimes committed by previous versions. Shao is allowed honor as a soldier without the throne that turned conquest into identity. That mercy contains risk because these people are not empty pieces. They respond to frustration, status, and opportunity. Titan Shang does not create their ambition from nothing. He validates it, accelerates it, and supplies methods Liu removed. Tarkat provides another example of unintended cost. Baraka is no longer born into an army serving Shao Kahn, yet the disease destroys his respected life and isolates victims. Melina gains a loving family while living with an illness that could undermine her claim. A better history is still capable of producing suffering Liu did not design. Then, Jairus discovers evidence that somebody has altered the new era from outside. The villains Liu weakened are receiving impossible knowledge. Liu Kang's world has not spontaneously repeated history. Another timeline is pushing old ambitions back into it. Earthrealm's champions. When Outworld's friendly tournament approaches, Liu Kang needs new champions. His search leads to a farm where Raiden and Kung Lao live without understanding the scale of the history around them. This Raiden has no divine memories and no lightning at first. Kung Lao remains talented, proud, and convinced he deserves the opportunity. Their rivalry echoes earlier timelines without carrying the same bitterness. Johnny Cage is an actor again, recently separated and surrounded by expensive objects he mistakes for stability. Kenshi Takahashi tries to recover Sento, an ancestral sword in Johnny's collection. Their first meeting becomes a fight, then an alliance once Liu reveals the tournament and the danger developing around Outworld. Liu tests the recruits, and Raiden earns the role of champion. He receives an amulet that allows him to channel lightning, reversing the old relationship. The man once worshipped as Earthrealm's god now enters Mortal Kombat as Liu Kang's mortal student. The tournament itself is peaceful. Raiden defeats Outworld's fighters, including Li Mei, Reiko, Katana, and General Shao, while Sindel accepts the result. There is no 10th loss countdown, and no Emperor waiting to steal Earthrealm. Liu Kang appears to have proved Mortal Kombat can exist as controlled competition rather than a path to annihilation. That calm gives the conspiracy room to hide. Shang Tsung has been selling a supposed treatment for Tarkat, giving Melina and Baraka reason to tolerate him while he conducts secret experiments. General Shao has been encouraged to view Sindel's diplomacy as weakness. Quan Chi is learning sorcery he should never have possessed. Liu sends Kinshi, Johnny, and Kung Lao back into Outworld with Baraka to investigate. What begins as a covert mission exposes laboratories, soul magic, and a rebellion linked to knowledge from beyond their entire reality. Raiden's tournament run also redefines strength. He defeats opponents with more battlefield experience and political status because Liu's training, the amulet, and his own discipline align. Kung Lao loses the selection without turning against his friend. Their rivalry remains sharp enough to create energy and healthy enough to survive a verdict. Johnny and Kenshi begin with a dispute over property and ancestry. Sento is decor to Johnny and heritage to Kenshi. By the end of the campaign, Johnny helps the blinded swordsman while Kenshi becomes one of Earthrealm's most trusted champions. Their friendship grows from discovering that the object between them carried a history neither initially handled well. The friendly tournament gives Sindel and Liu a political ritual for maintaining peace. Earthrealm's victory transfers no territory, and Outworld's defeat requires no humiliation. This is Mortal Kombat operating as the Elder God's rules claimed it could, and that is why the conspiracy must manufacture fear outside the arena. The new era passed its first test. The threat is coming from outside the test. Outworld's secrets. Shang Tsung presents himself as the only person able to control Melina's Tarkat symptoms. His serum works well enough to create dependence, yet the treatment also gives him access to the future Empress and cover for experiments beneath Outworld. Kenshi, Johnny, and Kung Lao are captured while investigating. They encounter Baraka, once a respected Outworld merchant before Tarkat destroyed his life and forced him into an isolated colony. Liu Kang's redesign removed Tarkatan armies from Shao's command, but suffering found another form. Baraka now fights for people treated as contagious monsters. The group also meets Sizoth, the New Era's reptile. Shang Tsung holds Sizoth's family hostage and forces him to serve as a shape-shifting guard. When Sizoth learns that his family has already been murdered, obedience loses its purpose. He joins the escape. Ashra arrives from the Netherrealm, a demon trying to purge the evil from her soul through a sacred sword. Her existence reveals that Liu Kang did not erase every old structure. The Netherrealm still corrupts, while demons still choose what they become. A redesigned history changes conditions without eliminating free will. Inside Shang Tsung's laboratory, Kenshi loses his sight during a confrontation with Mileena. The injury awakens Sento's connection to the souls of his ancestors, giving him the sensory power associated with his earlier versions. Liu Kang tried to prevent familiar tragedies, yet Kenshi becomes the blind swordsman again through a different chain of choices. Quan Chi creates Ermac from a collection of souls. Among them is King Jared, murdered years earlier. Jared eventually takes control of the body and reunites briefly with Sindel and his daughters. The family destroyed by Shao Kahn in previous timelines receives another chance, but it arrives inside a weapon built by the New Alliance. General Shao moves openly against Sindel. Reiko supports him, and Rain uses his position as Outworld's High Mage to aid the conspiracy. The coup turns the royal court into a battlefield. Li Mei, once blamed for failing to protect Jared, regains Sindel's trust by helping uncover the truth. Sindel is mortally wounded during the conflict. Her soul joins Ermac, where Jared retains enough control to protect their daughters. Mileena becomes Empress, now carrying both the Target secret and the responsibility Shao spent years telling everyone she could not handle. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi escape because the rebellion was never fully theirs. They have been receiving instructions, power, and knowledge from Damashi. Liu Kang recognizes the name from the history he studied, but this guide cannot be Onaga operating exactly as before. The New Era's Onaga remains connected to a separate Outworld plot involving Reiko. Mileena's illness places Tanya in a dangerous position. Their relationship is genuine, but secrecy around it and Target can be used against both women. Tanya has carried the role of Edenian betrayer in older histories. Here, loyalty to Mileena becomes part of the resistance against Shao's coup. Li Mei receives a similar reversal. Blamed for Jared's death, she loses status and spends years under suspicion. The investigation allows her to prove that shame was assigned before the full conspiracy was understood. Liu's New Era keeps familiar names while redistributing which people betray and which repair. Jared's presence inside Ermac makes the Soul Warrior politically explosive. If the king can retain control, Ermac becomes family, witness, and potential ruler. If the surrounding souls take over, the same body becomes unpredictable. Mileena inherits a throne with both parents present in forms that cannot restore the household she lost. Somebody is repeating Shujinko's deception with new victims, and the Lin Kuei are about to give that outsider a path into Earthrealm. The Lin Kuei divide. Bihan leads the Lin Kuei with growing resentment. For generations, his clan has protected Earthrealm from the shadows. He sees service where Liu Kang sees honor. If the Lin Kuei possess the skill to shape nations, why should they remain hidden servants of a god? Kuai Liang rejects that ambition. As Scorpion, he believes their strength exists to protect people, not rule them. Smoke supports Kuai Liang, creating a three-way family conflict where blood, adoption, and leadership point in different directions. General Shao's conspiracy gives Bihan an offer: support the rebellion, seize greater power, and stop accepting Liu Kang's limits. Bihan does not need magical brainwashing. His betrayal grows from a belief already inside him. During the mission to destroy the Dragon Army, Bihan reveals that he allowed their father to die rather than save him. The confession destroys any remaining trust with Kuai Liang. Scorpion and Smoke escape while Sub-Zero commits the Lin Kuei to a new direction. Kuai Liang travels to Japan and forms the Shirai Ryu. Harumi, dead in Scorpion's previous lives, is alive and becomes his partner. A young Hanzo Hasashi can now enter the clan without carrying the adult Spectre's history. Liu Kang has rearranged the names, yet the divide between Lin Kuei and Shirai Ryu returns through choice. The difference matters. Quan Chi created the original feud with lies and murder. In the new era, Bihan chooses dominance after receiving outside encouragement. Kuai Liang creates the rival clan as a defense against him. History rhymes because personalities and pressures survive, not because one fate mechanically forces every person into place. Bihan's cooperation helps Shang Tsung and Quan Chi move their plan forward, but neither sorcerer understands the full scale of Damashi's identity. They think they are seizing power inside one timeline. Smoke's position becomes painful because his loyalty is chosen rather than guaranteed by blood. Bihan can dismiss him as an outsider while Kuai Liang treats him as a brother. The clan leader who talks most about Lin Kuei greatness is the one narrowing who deserves to belong. Kuai Liang's new identity as Scorpion changes the symbolism of fire. Hanzo's flames once came from death and Netherrealm vengeance. Kuai uses fire while alive, controlled, and committed to defense. The name carries history without dictating the same personality. Harumi's survival offers the sharpest proof of Lu's mercy. She can build a future beside Scorpion instead of existing as the memory that drives his murders. Chaos Reigns attacks their wedding because destroying that future would push Kuai Liang toward the older cycle. Their benefactor already owns another. Damashi revealed. Liu Kang captures Shang Tsung and Quan Chi and takes them to the place where their conspiracy can be examined. Garas has already discovered that the timeline contains foreign traces. The evidence points beyond anything one native sorcerer should possess. Damashi appears and abandons the disguise. He is Shang Tsung, but not the powerless schemer born in Liu Kang's new era. This is the version who defeated Fire God Liu Kang at the end of Aftermath. He claimed the Hourglass, conquered his own timeline, and ascended as a Titan. Now, the alternate ending has a body. Titan Shang Tsung explains the multiverse created by the Hourglass battle. Liu Kang believed he had eliminated his enemy and begun one new era. In another surviving branch, Shang did the same to Liu. Similar clashes produced more Titan Keepers, each governing a different history. Titan Shang's objective is to absorb or destroy rival timelines until no equal remains. Liu Kang's peaceful era is dangerous precisely because its protector once defeated him. He cannot allow a second fire god to maintain an independent reality. The local Shang Tsung and Quan Chi discover that their promised future never placed them beside their benefactor. They are tools designed to weaken Liu's defenses from within. Damashi has repeated Onaga's method at a multiversal scale. Select ambitious people, present secret knowledge as destiny, and discard them when the path is open. Liu Kang responds by gathering allies from other timelines. One is a Titan version of Kitana, allowing him to reunite with a woman who carries the history and power of another world. Their meeting gives Liu an emotional cost for controlling time. He can create a version of Kitana in his reality, but he cannot manufacture the exact relationship he lost without controlling her life. Titan Shang invades with an army containing altered combinations of familiar fighters. The local sorcerers temporarily join Liu because annihilation offers them no throne. Alliances form across histories that would have been impossible when everyone assumed only one canon could survive. Titan Shang's survival validates the Aftermath choice without diminishing Liu's victory. Each defeated the other inside a branch where their power reached the decisive point. Their reunion is a conflict between two genuine winners, which explains why neither can dismiss the other as an illusion. The local Shang Tsung reacts with anger because his benefactor represents the destiny he wanted and the contempt waiting at its summit. Titan Shang does not see another self as family. He sees a replaceable instrument. Narcissism scales poorly into a multiverse filled with equally ambitious versions. Titan Katana gives Liu the opposite encounter. He recognizes shared love without claiming ownership over her history. Their alliance allows emotional continuity between worlds, while respecting that she is the protector of another timeline. The final confrontation takes place on a pyramid shaped like the Pyramid of Argus. Armageddon has returned, except this time every fighter climbing it may come from a different timeline. The Battle of Armageddon. Liu Kang selects a champion to climb the pyramid while Titan forces collide around them. The player can choose from multiple fighters, so the exact identity of the climber is flexible. The structure of the battle remains constant. Every level introduces strange combinations produced by fractured histories. Fighters carry fused names, mixed abilities, and roles that could never coexist in the older single timeline. These are not all important new biographies waiting for a full family tree. They are visual evidence that the Hourglass split created more possibilities than either Liu Kang or Titan Shang Tsung can catalog. The climb deliberately mirrors the opening of Mortal Kombat, Armageddon. In the original timeline, every combatant raced upward to claim Blaze's power, and the contest ended with Shao Kahn destroying history. In the new era, fighters from many histories climb to stop one Titan from erasing every world except his own. At the summit, Liu Kang and his champion defeat Titan Shang Tsung and his Quan Chi. The invading sorcerer is destroyed, and the pyramid begins collapsing. The immediate war ends with Liu's timeline intact. That victory cannot restore the old assumption of one controlled reality. Too many Titan allies and branching fighters appeared for Liu Kang to deny that his new era is one primary history inside an open multiverse. The local Shang Tsung and Quan Chi survived to face imprisonment in their own world. General Shao's rebellion has failed, but his ambition remains. Melina rules Outworld, Kitana supports her, and Jared continues through Ermac. Scorpion has founded the Shirai Ryu against Sub-Zero's Lin Kuei. Then the final scene reveals another observer. Titan Havoc watches the battle from his own timeline. He is frustrated that the conflict ended so quickly and decides the survivors need to experience a longer, more chaotic war. Havoc once represented Chaos Realm's rejection of order. As a Titan, he can impose that philosophy on an entire history. That sounds contradictory because it is. Forced chaos becomes another form of control, and Titan Havoc plans to prove his worldview by breaking people until stability looks impossible. The flexible champion choice at the pyramid prevents one fighter from becoming the sole canonical savior at the expense of the others. Liu Kang's plan depends on a coalition of Titans, local defenders, and one selected climber. The final blow belongs to the player's champion, while the historical achievement belongs to the Alliance. The fused fighters supply humor and shock after a dense multiversal reveal, yet they communicate a serious limit. Once histories branch this widely, identity cannot be tracked through names alone. A Sub-Zero, Scorpion, or Johnny from another timeline may carry powers, loyalties, and memories that contradict everything Liu's allies expect. Titan Havoc understands that uncertainty as an opportunity. He does not need to defeat Liu during the pyramid battle. He needs to observe which connections remain unstable and attack where order is emotionally valuable. His first move targets the peace between the Lin Kuei and Shirai Ryu. The expansion begins at a wedding that should have marked the creation of a new family. Mortal Kombat 1. Chaos reigns. Kuai Liang and Harumi prepare to marry while the Shirai Ryu gather around them. The ceremony represents the life Scorpion never received in earlier timelines. Harumi is alive, his clan is growing, and revenge no longer controls him. Bi-Han attacks with Lin Kuei, forces led by Sector and Cyrax. In this era, Sector and Cyrax are women wearing advanced armor rather than fully converted cyborgs. Both initially believe Sub-Zero's account that Kuai Liang betrayed the clan. Cyrax begins questioning that story when she sees the reality of Bi-Han's aggression. The attack is only the opening. Titan Havoc pulls Garrus and Bi-Han into his timeline, where disorder has become an empire. Havoc wants Garrus because the construct's body contains temporal crystals connected to the hourglass. He also possesses Kamidogu capable of combining realms and power. By joining the crystals with the artifacts, he intends to make his chaotic reality spread beyond one timeline. Liu Kang cannot charge into another Titan's domain without risking a wider temporal collapse. Scorpion, Cyrax, and Sector enter Havoc's timeline to recover Garrus and Bi-Han. Their alliance is tense for obvious reasons. Sector remains devoted to Sub-Zero. Cyrax has learned that he manipulated her. Kuai Liang has every reason to let his brother suffer, yet leaving Bi-Han behind would give Havoc a weapon and deepen the clan war. Havoc's reality contains altered versions of familiar people. Emperor Rain and Empress Tanya lead a resistance against him. A version of Johnny Cage resembles a soldier from a different age, placing the actor's personality inside another historical identity. These fighters show what a Titan timeline can become after one philosophy shapes it for generations. Rain ultimately sacrifices himself to help the group move forward. The Resistance pays for every stage of the rescue, while Havoc treats pain as proof that order was always fraudulent. Bi-Han is transformed into Noob Saibot. The name once belonged to Bi-Han's dead, corrupted soul after Scorpion killed him. In the new era, Havoc creates Noob by forcibly altering a living Sub-Zero. The visual destiny returns through a completely different mechanism. Havoc expects the transformation to create a loyal weapon. Bi-Han's will survives enough for Noob Saibot to turn against him. Liu Kang and the others use that resistance to defeat the Titan and stop the merger of timelines. Noob wants to kill Havoc. Liu Kang refuses to allow it, choosing containment while he searches for a way to reverse Bi-Han's corruption. That decision preserves the possibility that Sub-Zero can return, but it also leaves a furious Noob imprisoned under Liu's authority. The clan conflict changes again after the mission. Cyrax rejects Bi-Han's deception and joins the Shirai Ryu once Kuai Liang accepts her. Sector remains loyal to Bi-Han and takes leadership of the Lin Kuei while he is contained. Scorpion and Sector return from the same mission with opposite conclusions about what saving him requires. Titan Havoc is defeated without the multiverse being closed. His timeline still existed long enough to invade another, which means destroying Titan, Shang Tsung did not remove the structure that made Chaos Reigns possible. Other Titan histories and versions of the Kamidogu remain active, and other keepers may decide Liu Kang's world is a threat, and Liu's own villains have not disappeared. General Shao, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi remain capable of new alliances. Onaga is being positioned through Reiko. Sector controls the Lin Kuei, and Noob Saibot carries Bihan's anger with power amplified by a Titan. Chaos Reigns also complicates the Kamidogu. These artifacts are tied to Havok's attempt to combine power across realms and timelines, calling back to the objects that once contained pieces of the One Being. The exact cosmology has changed, but the danger remains recognizable. Separate worlds become vulnerable when somebody controls the objects connecting them. Noob Saibot's return asks whether Liu's redesigned fate can survive forced correction. Bihan was already moving toward tyranny, although he had not died or become a Netherrealm wraith. Havok accelerates him into the form audiences recognize. If Liu restores him physically, the ambition that caused the clan split will still remain. Cyrax's defection gives the Shirai Ryu knowledge of Lin Kuei armor and methods. Sector's leadership gives the Lin Kuei a commander whose loyalty to Bihan survived seeing the cost of his choices. The conflict now has personal, technological, and ideological reasons to continue. So after 3 timelines, repeated resets, and an open multiverse, where does the story actually stand now? The timeline, now. The cleanest answer is that Mortal Kombat has 3 connected main histories. The original timeline begins with the One Being mythology and runs through the ancient wars, the Great Kung Lao, the first 7 main games, and Armageddon. Shao Kahn defeats Blaze, nearly kills Raiden, and causes the Thunder God to send a warning backward. That warning creates the reboot timeline. Mortal Kombat 2011 changes the events of the first 3 games. Mortal Kombat X follows the damaged future produced by those changes, and Mortal Kombat 11 reveals Kronika's larger cycle. Fire God Liu Kang defeats her and reaches the Hourglass. Aftermath fractures the apparent ending as Liu Kang wins in one branch and Shang Tsung wins in another. Those outcomes generate Titan timelines capable of existing beside one another. Liu Kang's new era is the current primary continuity. Mortal Kombat 1 and Chaos Reigns happen there. Its Raiden is mortal, Kuai Liang is Scorpion, and Bihan becomes Noob Saibot through Havok's corruption. Mileena is Empress of Outworld. Garrus guards the Hourglass while Liu protects Earthrealm. Calling this everything is canon would be too loose. The live-action films do not suddenly become required chapters in Liu Kang's biography. Every arcade ending does not occupy one impossible calendar. Shaolin Monks remains an alternate retelling of the Mortal Kombat Cthulhu period. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe can be understood as a crossover branch without becoming the bridge between Deception and Armageddon. The precise conclusion is more useful. The 3 main game histories are causally connected, and Mortal Kombat 1 confirms a wider multiverse of alternate Titan timelines. The original era matters because its ending sends the message. The reboot matters because its Hourglass battle creates the split. The new era matters because it is where the ongoing story currently lives. Has Liu Kang finally created a stable timeline? He has come closer than anyone else. His era survives for eons before outside interference reaches it. He reduces Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and Shao without erasing their freedom. He gives Kitana, Mileena, Baraka, Scorpion, and Raiden lives that avoid several earlier tragedies. But the same freedom lets ambition return. Bihan chooses power, General Shao chooses rebellion, and the local Shang Tsung chooses to use the knowledge Titan Shang offers. Liu can change conditions, but creating a world where nobody can make a destructive choice would turn his new era into Kronika's system with a kinder ruler. That is why every attempted fix creates another catastrophe. The Elder Gods divide reality and create rules, so conquerors search for loopholes. Shao Kahn builds an empire, so poisoned histories produce rebellions and revenants. Delia creates Blaze to prevent Armageddon, so every fighter races to control him. Raiden changes the past, so different people die, and Shinnok inherits a weaker Earthrealm. Kronika resets history to preserve balance, so Raiden and Liu unite against her. Liu Kang wins the Hourglass, and the battle produces multiple Titans with their own realities. Each solution centralizes enormous power in somebody trusted to decide what history should become. The system holds until that person makes a mistake, an outsider intervenes, or another version of the winner refuses to accept the result. Liu Kang responds differently after learning the multiverse exists. He does not try to erase every branch. He works with Titan allies against Shang Tsung and enters Havok's timeline to rescue people rather than conquer it. He leaves Garrus with the Hourglass instead of keeping every role for himself. That restraint does not guarantee peace. It gives the new era a chance to survive without requiring one god to own every possible future. Several threats are now open. Titan Havok has been defeated. But the damage to Bihan remains. Sector leads a hostile Lin Kuei. Scorpion and Cyrax are building the Shirai Ryu. Outworld has survived Xiao's coup, while Melina protects the secret of Tarkat. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi know Titans exist. Reiko's connection to Onaga points toward the Dragon King's return, in a history where his old empire may never have existed in the same form. Above all of them sits the multiverse. Somewhere, Kitana rules as a Titan. Somewhere else, histories built by other victors continue. Every ending powerful enough to claim an hourglass may have created another world with its own champions, disasters, and ideas about which timeline deserves to lead. So which Mortal Kombat timeline actually counts? The original timeline happened and destroyed itself. The reboot happened because Raiden tried to prevent that destruction. Liu Kang's new era followed the reboot's final split and remains the main setting today. None of those histories cancels the chain before it. Think about what each history preserves, beginning with the original era and its causes. It contains the conquest of Edenia, Bihan's fall, Liu Kang's rise, the Deadly Alliance, Shujinko's mistake, and the Armageddon that gives Raiden a reason to interfere. Remove that history completely, and the warning arrives from nowhere. The reboot preserves the consequences of intervention. Raiden saves Smoke from conversion and loses Kuai Liang to it. He prevents Shao Kahn's victory until he understands the Emperor must be allowed to violate the rules. He defeats the invasion and leaves Quan Chi with dead champions ready for Shinnok. The altered history proves that foreknowledge cannot remove trade-offs when the person using it misunderstands the system. The new era preserves memory at the level of its creator. Liu Kang knows what Shao Kahn, Shang Tsung, and Quan Chi became, even when the people born into his reality do not. He uses that knowledge to change their conditions, then has to judge them for the choices they make now, rather than punish them endlessly for previous versions. That creates one of the next story's strongest possible conflicts. How much should Liu tell people about lives they never lived? Bihan could hear that another version of him became Noob Saibot and treat the warning as insult, destiny, or justification. Melina could learn that she was once created as Kitana's replacement. Raiden could discover that he used to be the god guiding Liu. Every revelation could help somebody avoid a pattern or push them straight toward it. Garrus becomes crucial because he can retain perspective without claiming the lives belong to him. He has served Kronika, watched Liu's era develop, and identified the foreign alteration. If the multiverse keeps expanding, the Keeper's job may become less about writing history and more about proving which outside force changed it. The Elder Gods are less central now because Titan conflict sits above the tournament rules they once enforced. A legal victory cannot stop somebody who enters from a reality with its own hourglass. Earthrealm still needs champions, but its defense now includes temporal detection, alliances with other Titans, and restraint strong enough to avoid treating every alternate fighter as an invader. That is a much larger battlefield than Shang Tsung's island. It is also the logical end of a story that began with separate realms learning how dangerous forced reunion could be. Mortal Kombat began with reality being broken into pieces, so no single being could control everything. Thousands of years later, the timeline reaches the same answer. One history becomes many because no single winner can contain every possible future. The realms survived the one being. Earthrealm survived Shao Kahn, Raiden survived long enough to change the past, and Liu Kang survived long enough to rebuild it. Now the greatest danger is no longer one emperor winning 10 tournaments. It is a Titan from another reality deciding that only his ending deserves to exist. There is also a practical rule for reading future stories. Begin by asking which history a character belongs to. A familiar costume no longer guarantees shared memories. Then ask whether the event happens in Liu Kang's primary new era, a Titan branch, or a temporary game mode with no confirmed effect on the campaign. That prevents the multiverse from turning into an excuse for confusion. The main line remains readable. Mortal Kombat 1 establishes the new era. Chaos Reigns continues its clan conflict and Titan threat. Parallel worlds explain visitors and alternate keepers without requiring every possibility to interrupt every chapter. The governing question remains open in the most interesting way. No protector has created permanent stability. Liu Kang has created a system capable of responding without immediately resetting existence. His success will depend on whether he can keep choosing cooperation after new Titans prove that control would feel safer. Mortal Kombat's chronology looks chaotic because each era remembers the failure before it. Underneath, the chain is direct. Armageddon creates the warning creates the reboot creates Fire God Liu Kang, and the Hourglass Battle creates the new era's multiverse. And as Chaos Reigns proves, the next invasion can come from any timeline at any moment.